It is cold in the castle. The dark windows barely let in any light, which is not even visible. Normally, a girl with snow-white hair blows out a candle, removing it from the bread. Valerie wishes herself a happy birthday. She is alone in this place, desperately trying to survive. Today is her 19th birthday, but even now, people outside wish her death. I still have memories in my head of when the beauty was given, that very reprimand, the former Princess Valerie Belov was transferred to the MacLeod Palace. People around are whispering. They think that this is too little for punishment. Her mother died, so the girl deserves the same in full. It was then that the emperor's grandson was lost. Because of that woman, everyone unanimously asks for the punishment to be more severe. They will rebel if His Majesty does not change his decision. The man shouts, "It would be better for everyone gathered to shut their mouths." He will consider everyone who has something to say as wanting to go to the same castle, and there is no escape from this. Being locked up in MacLeod was akin to a death sentence, but Valerie's half-brother considered it a better alternative to the death sentence. The beauty still cannot understand what she did to deserve such a terrible treatment. She did nothing and does not want to go to the frozen castle on the top of the mountain. The mountain, which was once full of greenery, became frozen exactly 500 years ago. Emperor Loxar defeated a dragon that possessed ice magic capable of killing humanity. As soon as the man pierced the monster's heart with his sword, a force burst forth, the same one that turned the mountain into ice, which led to the freezing of villages and hundreds of victims. Even after 500 years, the forest had not changed its appearance, preserving the horror of that incident. As if it had happened yesterday, exile to such a place seemed like something that could never be washed away. In addition, the girl had to adopt the ice power of that monster. Here now an ice stream flows in the veins of the beauty forever. She will be the same monster. Falling to the floor, the woman wants to burst into tears again. Her life seems incredibly miserable. She does not know how to cope with loneliness and her future death. If God really understood, He would never have made Valerie go through all this horror. There is nothing to expect from a life in which you cannot even feel a drop of warmth. People cannot survive without love, despite expectations. Belov lived to be 19. Now the only way out is to commit the first terrible sin. Valerie calls for some crystals with sharp ends that will be right. Finally, it will all end. The lady falls to the floor. If the Lord hears, He will help in the next life, to be born in a place not so cold. Something hits her head. The blonde suddenly opens her eyes, contemplating a girl in front of her shouting something and insulting the heroine. It seems to be her mother. Covering her ears with her hands, the child backs away a little. She does not understand why at this very moment she sees all the flashes of the past. Grabbing the box, the woman reminds him that nothingness like her daughter has no right to be born, and she breaks the thing, doing so dangerously close to her body. The baby looks sadly at the floor, out of all the memories. For some reason, this is the one they showed until the very end. Something like this haunted her, making her think. Every time the woman sees the child, she feels bad. She gets angry again. This person's name is Aisha. She is a former empress. Not being satisfied even with her status, she soon fell into decadence after ascending to the throne of Millard. The girl, finding herself in a dead end, did not know what to do. She took out all her anger on the baby, which was her daughter. When she was still little, the beauty believed that she was to blame for everything, so she kept her mouth shut and endured without making a sound. She was stupid then and didn't understand what she was doing. A rough voice breaks me out of my thoughts. "Dare you still think about something?" My mother is indignant. She comes closer to deliver one of the blows to the most painful place. With her hand, she throws the body onto the floor. Even someone like her daughter considers Aisha a laughingstock. For some reason, the pain from the slap really spreads throughout the body. Valerie is no longer sure whether she really died because not everything is right here. A snowflake is visible in her hands. Now there are twice as many questions. The blonde looks at her palms, not understanding what will happen next. Maybe it's like she's returned to the past, but at the same time wielding the power of ice from MacLeod Castle. While the little girl was thinking, Belov interpreted the situation in her own way. Her daughter looks down on her. The girl doesn't know what to answer. The retribution is cruel. To this day, the lady remembers the day when the maid brought a gift from His Majesty in the box. There is a beautiful casket. It is a gift from His Majesty. Aisha asks sullenly, If it's true that Millard is giving something like this to Her Royal Highness the Princess, just for the sake of attention, smiling a crazy smile full of strange feelings, the blonde understands that the man has finally gone crazy for her. This is good news, which makes her laugh to her heart's content. That same evening, when the child was finally left alone, she reaches for a small thing on the nightstand. She had never received a gift from another person before. The music box was wonderfully made and made such pleasant sounds that she had not heard since birth that day became especially good. Now the thing is lying on the floor, only pieces of it remain. The woman orders to sit silently in the room until the wounds heal completely. If the daughter decides to go somewhere, she will have only herself to blame. Even if so, it is better to think about the future. Even if she wants to, she will hardly be able to do anything. The blonde watches as the chance floats away again. Aisha is ready to close the door, but in her head it flashes. Why am I still putting up with this and put up with it even then? The maiden rushed forward, throwing her mother back, and forcing the maids to disperse the order to grab the baby as heard. But she is not going to stop. Everything inside hurts from the blows that were dealt a little earlier. The blue-eyed girl does not understand where she should run. She needs help, but nothing can be done about it at the moment. If you think about it, when Valerie lived on the snowy mountain, the Emperor was the only one who provided her with everything she needed, never leaving her without anything important. Even now, surely a man can help thinking about this. The blonde looks around to understand where the exit to the doors of the main hall is. She didn't expect that everything would end, that her hopes would be in vain. Jumping out of the corner, the heroine runs into the maids who grab her by the arms. A child in this state also runs fast. It's just funny, one of the maids asks to be an obedient girl. Her Majesty will forgive. Valerie has no idea what to do if they take her away. Now it will be the end. The only possible option is to freeze her with her power. The hand reached forward, but inside the creature, a voice of conscience was heard. The girl has no right to become a monster possessing his power. She is not that dragon. They are different. She wants to scream for someone to help, but they shut her mouth. Someone's figure is visible around the corner. There is a boy with bright blonde hair. His face reminds her of someone. The princess continues to try to break free. Hoping that she can do something, she looks with pitiful eyes, begging the hero to do something and tell his father about what happened. The maid reports to Her Highness, telling her that everything was finally finished. It seems that no one saw them, so there will be no problems. Exhaling, Aisha snorts. No matter who pokes their nose into the family's affairs, Millard will never get what happens in this place. The girl will get what she deserves. Valerie was wrong when she behaved inappropriately. Her attempts can be considered futile. The girl is too brave since she decides to push her mother and run away. Since she behaves like this, it would be nice to show again the place where such people are. She will have to get what she did. There is no choice, even if her body is mutilated. One of the maids came running desperately, screaming and calling for Her Majesty. It turned out that there were guards behind the door. It seems that something happened. The child understands that the boy did report what happened in the corridor. Millard wasn't supposed to be a witness, but something went wrong. The woman is worried, offering to quickly leave. Something needs to be done with the princess, who ends up with a bandage on her face. The brunette is ordered to watch Valerie, so that there is not a single squeak, nothing should get in her way. Leaning towards her daughter, she orders her to sit still, or better, yet pretend to be dead. After that, the cabinet closed, leaving no light. The door opened, several men appeared there. The blonde one was the captain of the Imperial Knights, named Bruno Renaumann. Walking forward, the hero smiles. He is glad to meet. And on this note, he is going to start a conversation. Aisha tries to remain as welcoming as possible, although everyone already knows about her insides. Frowning, she still asks what brought the Imperial Knights to them. The guy bows his head respectfully. His Majesty ordered to check how Her Highness the Princess is doing. The blonde smiles maniacally, repeating the words spoken. She cannot remember them being so close, to the point that the young man paid them visits. Bruno is no longer going to nod, restrainedly. The squad is only carrying out the order of His Majesty. It will not be possible to contradict, since the girl who lost her title has no choice. Throwing up her hands as if not understanding what was happening, the lady assures that it was normal. But now was not the best time. Valerie had gone to bed after her etiquette lesson. Obviously, this serves as a refusal. As the beauty said, there is no intention to wake the princess, just for the sake of her showing herself to people. Renown asks for forgiveness for his ignorance, but it is still in order. He is interrupted mid-sentence. The interlocutor has already said that her daughter will not wake up. There is no point in continuing such a conversation. The situation makes the girl incredibly angry, since she is no longer an empress. This does not mean that her words are empty words. The refusal to show the child is heard again, until the emperor appears in person. The squad will not see Valerie's face. The decision lies on his shoulders. We will see what happens next. Bowing his head, the brunette apologizes for disturbing him. Of course, he didn't mean to do anything wrong. It's clear that he has to resign himself and open the door to leave. Inside, Valerie has a terrible feeling of missing out. She doesn't want to be left behind, because then she'll have to relive the same days again and eventually go to the castle. Hope seemed to have faded when suddenly the door swings open, and none other than the emperor enters the room as majestic as ever. The hero expected something like this, so he came in person. He doesn't need an apology from the knights who did nothing. He should talk to Aisha. Coming forward, the woman tries to hush up the matter. There is no point in such a busy person visiting them. If you really want to know about your health, it's better to visit another day. Millard refuses grimly, his voice booming through the room. The echo priceless and incredibly frightening. He is here to see his little sister. Valerie must show herself, in fact. Her Majesty will be very surprised when she learns that the couple is not close enough to exchange greetings. The man hadn't really shown any interest in anything like that for the past 9 years, so he must have had a serious reason to insist on seeing the child. It turned out that a report had been received that the only princess of the empire was being dragged somewhere by her own maids. They were hurting her by covering her mouth. A fleeting smile appears on her face, indicating that this is the end. Looking at the maids, the empress answers for them too. We don't know anything. The informers were probably wrong. The blonde laughs in response, copying the energy of his interlocutor. He didn't think that everyone in the palace was involved in the conspiracy. It makes him feel disgusted. His Highness is not going to listen to the decrees and requests of the former empress. The knights are obliged to search the entire room and find his sister as soon as possible. The woman goes crazy because this doesn't suit her. It seems like it's too much. Making such a fuss over some rumors is the worst thing that can happen in this case. A boy bursts into the room. The crown prince is sure that the lady is wrong, because he saw with his own eyes what happened in the corridor and told his father about it. It's karma, since of all the possible people, it was Erlens who caught the girl the man had spoken earlier, asking her to wait. He was able to figure everything out himself. There was no point in interfering. The kid continues to argue. He was the first to see everything, so he wants to participate until the very end. It's really hard to find time to be stubborn. He will stay in this place and won't go anywhere. It's better to bring the beauty voluntarily and sort everything out before the knights find the beauty. Valerie will come out sooner or later. The man starts to get even more angry because the blonde doesn't seem to be going to negotiate. She will stubbornly refuse to give the facts. Starting to get hysterical, Aisha asks why they are doing this to her. Her monologue is stopped by Erlans, who points his finger at the closet that is where Belov Jr. should be. The knights are ordered to open the doors, and while the woman screams that she shouldn't do this, light pours in, forcing her to close her eyes tighter. The boy extends his hand, smiling. The girl has nothing to fear anymore, because he came to save her. Now everything will be fine. Her hands are tied, just like her mouth. She needs to untie it. Turning the lady towards himself, the crown prince asks her to be patient for a little while. He fiddles with the knot. Finally, everything is over, and the lady meets the king for the first time in this life. There is no way to hesitate any longer if this chance is not used. The end will come. The girl falls to her knees, begging the man to help and protect her. The blonde promises that she will do whatever she wants. Her mother, standing behind her, screams, asking what she should understand, as if she has no idea what is happening to them in the estate. Frowning, the young man exhales, because everything is clear to him. Anyway, the offender needs to be arrested now. And also, all the housekeepers and maids convicted of cruelty towards the princess need to be taken away. While the woman is being dragged away, she asks for forgiveness. Turning around, the guy suggests going to the detachment. Now the baby is safe. Everything will be fine with her. The beauty is wriggling. The whole world is angry with her, as if the punishment was not enough. This becomes terribly unpleasant. Valerie won't be able to live a normal life, knowing how she treated her own mother. Bruno manages to shut her mouth before even more dirt spills out. Finally, Aisha showed her true face. Although she had been trying to skillfully dodge punishment for the last half hour, looking straight into the eyes, Millard was ready to spit on her. Since the girl wanted it so much, the significance of words can be assessed in reality. Renauman is asked to conduct a strict interrogation on all previous incidents. Of course, you can still hear objections and shouts, but that doesn't mean that it's all going to end now. For now, it's better for the children to leave here so as not to see what's happening. The man comes closer and reaches his hand to the top of his sister's head, but she shrinks back as if he wants to hit her. This action was careless on Millard's part. He realizes only now. Taking off his jacket, the young man throws it over the shoulders of the beauty. She definitely has nothing to fear because she will definitely be protected from all the adversities that will come her way in the future. It must be hard for the baby in such a state, not only to walk, but also to stand. I want to hope that she will give permission to carry her in her arms, easing the situation. If the beauty doesn't mind, they lift her up. Erland smiles. He is going to follow them, because there is no point in staying here. The man notices his son's bravery, which he admires. But despite this, they still have to talk about reckless behavior. Blue-Eyed received the help she had desired for so long, but this warmth was still unfamiliar. Until now, the lady was withering away, alone in the frozen palace. It was hard to believe that what was happening was reality. Erland's distracted from his thoughts. He looks into the baby's eyes, asking the only question, wanting to know if she is okay, and what her condition is turning away. The beauty nods. In fact, all this is more like a lie. The child closes his eyes so as not to accidentally cry. It becomes more difficult to cope with emotions. These people, this warmth, you want to bask in it, at least a little longer, take more for yourself, and rejoice that she was finally given something so important. His Majesty went to the palace, where he was met at the threshold by the head butler named Kyle, with servants nearby, who bowed their heads respectfully. The first one asks if there's a need to call the Imperial doctor, and it seems he gets a positive answer. He should examine Valerie and find the empress. The little one doesn't know if she needs all this. Both are already waiting in the living room as they have prepared themselves in this way. Besides this, Millard turns to the maid. He entrusts the child into the hands of Fernanda Rail. The woman stretches out her arms and takes Valerie to her again. You feel that very warmth, which perhaps cannot be compared to anything Erland also wants to leave. The Emperor had to bring the guy down to earth, without any hesitation. It's hard to get used to this relationship. It's all different from his past life. These are just two small children, but one of them is an aunt, and the other is a nephew, given their status. On the contrary, it is worth behaving a little differently. Still looking ahead, the man asks Kyle to understand that there will be unrest for a while. This is due to Her Majesty, the former queen. The man thought that Aisha was hiding her daughter because she was overprotective of her, but he was wrong. Everything turned out to be much worse. Valerie's condition must be fully checked. Most likely, due to the swelling on his cheek, Millard relies on his butler and heads to the Dowager Empress, Karina, and his wife, Layla. The beauty with snow-white hair is the first to get up from her seat, worriedly, asking what happened. Erland is nowhere to be seen, and several hours have already passed. Sitting down at the table opposite the hero, exhales. He looks calm enough, but something is bothering him. It seems he needs to say something. It will be important. The baby is being examined by a maid. She is sitting near a mirror, staring intently at her reflection. She is now most likely about 9 or 10 years old. In the past, it was unforgettable. The days dragged on equally and made you constantly afraid of what would happen next at night. When everyone was asleep, the heroine secretly turned on the box. In those days, the child imagined herself growing up in a good, loving family. Envy was always present, because Erland received the best of everything, just what the baby needed. Now the blonde is standing at the other end of the room, looking carefully. The girl realized that his gaze was focused on the wounds. The young man asks if he did something wrong. Valerie explains that the friend saw a lot of things that he shouldn't have. There must have been surprise. Something like this had a strong effect on the boy. Instead of agreeing and turning away, the blonde asks not to apologize for something like this. Instead, it would be better to thank, as Layla herself said. That is why the young man so strongly wants to hear words of gratitude at the moment. This is on the list of important things for him. The girl does not want to disappoint. Bowing her head, she thinks about something, and then says that she is pleased with the care and is grateful. She would never have thought that everything would turn out exactly like this. The boy smiles radiantly. It's much better this way. If the light had gathered and become a person, he would have looked exactly like this. The people around him are incredibly lucky. Someone knocks on the door of the room, interrupting the conversation. It turns out that Imperial Dr. Hannah Ryan has arrived and wants to come in to examine Valerie. The woman nods as soon as she is let in. She greets His Highness the Crown Prince, and Her Highness, this man is considered one of the 3 best doctors in the Empire. It is amazing that I got to meet him in person. In her past life, Hannah saved the Empress when she was poisoned by Aisha. Ryan is quite specific and only responds to the requests of King Millard. The brunette asks the boy for forgiveness in advance, but says that he will have to leave. Unfortunately, there is no choice. The young man immediately perked up, not understanding why he cannot stay. The need for the procedure to be done alone has not been cancelled. The blonde assures that everything will be fine with her. There is no need to worry, you can wait outside the door. The woman sits down. She doesn't understand what's wrong. A normal child would start to struggle and cry from pain. Valerie is too quiet. Apparently, this is how she coped with her mother. Her hands were bandaged, and even her face was covered with a bandage. It seemed that was all they had left. Hannah was about to get up, but then the girl asked if she should show her scars under her clothes. His Majesty needed to be informed about the situation. There was no certainty, but it was quite obvious the maiden assumed, after all, Erlans was sent away. There were no other options. Still, Belaf is grateful that the king is so concerned about her. If it weren't for him, the girl would still be suffering at the hands of her mother. The blue-eyed one assures herself to show the remaining scars from life in Ronin. She understands that this is for her own future, but for some reason, what is happening is incredibly difficult to accept. Her hands are shaking until Ryan carefully covers them with his palms. Helping to undress the girl, examined everything, and later wrote a report having studied the scars of Her Highness. She came to the conclusion that the princess was regularly subjected to physical abuse. Bell Jr. meets Valerie at the door. He asks how everything went, saying in advance that he was sure that the baby would be brave enough to endure it. Hannah didn't hurt thanks to her. Everything went absolutely well. The girl can only thank her. If the situation is not so bad, this is the most important thing. The boy suggests going to His Highness. They will have to talk at least once more to clarify all the details. The servant announces that their highnesses have finally arrived, and the atmosphere inside the room where the 2 empresses are is incredibly heavy. The baby can't read their thoughts, but she knows that Millard probably told her everything the doctor told him, and the blue-eyed girl becomes scared. The blonde starts speaking first. They manage to read the note sent by Hannah. It must have been difficult for Valerie. Her courage is incomparable to anything. Since the man was in that palace in person, there is nothing more to investigate, but serious evidence is needed to strip the former empress of her title. They all gathered in this room to listen to the beauty's version. They believe her and want to understand what happened. It is clear that it was painful for her to come to terms with this. The girl hears them asking her permission to tell everything, but she herself is not sure if this would be the right move. After thinking a little, she nods confidently. Clutching the hem of her dress to try and contain her emotions, Valerie conveys that she was hurt, lonely, and scared, and that at that moment, she no longer wanted to live. The beauty tried to escape, but that day she was caught by the maids who did not allow her to do so. If it were not for Irlands, the situation would have worsened. Clearly in a fit of anger, Millard asks why the child didn't ask for help. He quickly falls silent. This is an inappropriate question. The trio should figure it out themselves right away. Aisha repeatedly called her daughter a monster, assuring her that no one would love her or help her, telling His Majesty would not be enough, because in front of him would be the daughter of an enemy. The girl briefly recounted everything that her mother had constantly said, and because of this, she couldn't even bring herself to ask for help. It was all too difficult. Karina bows her head, not understanding how this is possible. The words sound unreal. No mother would blame her own daughter for all her sins. There was no suspicion about the maids, who were all in cahoots, and Millard suspected nothing when it was reported that Aisha was raising Valerie in love. The man offers his sincere apologies for not finding out everything earlier, for not even thinking to check what was said. Erlans, hearing the story, also became scared. He hugs Valerie. The girl is not a monster, and never was one. The real monsters are those who caused the beauty a lot of pain she deserved better. And I would like her life to be full of happiness. Now it will never hurt again. The beauty begins to sob without holding back. Layla also joins in, her son's words, lightly hugging him. It must have been hard to cope with this alone. When there is no one around, it is always more difficult. But now everything has changed. From now on, Valerie can rely on her family. Karina rudely interrupts the tenderness. They are still deciding what to do with Aisha. It is time to stop being condescending to her. Because of her child, there was no point in showing condescension at all. Millard agrees with his mother's position. We need to discuss what punishment to choose for the former empress. She should be in pain just like her daughters once were. The girl slept with Erlans. She doesn't have her own room yet and needs someone to look after her. Time passed, and when she woke up, the young man immediately asked how the heroine slept. Hoping that she was okay, Valerie did not immediately understand where they were. As the prince explained, this is his father's bedroom, which he has temporarily allocated for the children. The girl looks closely, realizing that the guy's eyes are a little swollen. The same with Valerie, they begin to laugh. There is a storm of new emotions and sensations inside the maiden, woke up with difficulty at the end of a long winter. New shoots are blooming outside the window, indicating the arrival of spring. The knight hits the bars with his hand to silence the girls in prison. One of them screams that she is innocent. She was only following the orders of Her Majesty. The maid promises to tell all the details of what happened. The king turns to the former queen. She must have brought something to say or not. The woman gave the guy an angry look. Of course, she was disgusted that the plan had just collapsed. The news of the bullying had spread like wildfire throughout the palace and beyond. Given the title of the former queen, the maiden would have become the center of everyone's attention in any case, and a good reason was needed to deprive her of this and subject her to the appropriate punishment. His Majesty is most concerned about Valerie's reaction. The princess enters the room. The prince brought her with him again. It seems they have something to say in this case. The blonde exhales quietly. He needs to gather his strength. He asks to listen to what will be said. Now Belov will be sentenced to death. This is a punishment that can be earned. The maiden says nothing but knows that the lady received the same punishment in her past life. In the past, Aisha was involved in 2 poisoning incidents. First, there was an unsuccessful attempt to poison the widowed Karina. That incident strained relations with the royal officials. When it happened, she and Valerie were imprisoned in Ronin. Then another incident occurred, with the poisoning of Layla, who never regained consciousness. It was impossible to pardon her twice, and therefore the death sentence was passed. Then Bello Jr. was imprisoned in MacLeod, a punishment just as severe as then her mother was sentenced to death. But this time, because of the main character, noticing that very strange expression on her face, the main character asks her not to think so much, that the former queen will lose her head. Because of her fault, she deserved it. Aisha made an unsuccessful attempt on the life of the Dowager Queen, for which she will now pay. Her crime has its consequences, just like everything else in this world. Millard asks not to think about it, because it is not his sister's fault. It is clear that the man is very worried about her, afraid that she will blame herself for the death. In fact, the girl was preparing for something like this from the moment she appeared, so she doesn't feel guilty. Hatred gradually begins to boil inside her, but these are perhaps all the feelings that are inherent in her. Grabbing the hem of her skirt to gather her strength a little, the girl confidently says that she is completely fine. Nothing else is bothering her. The ruler decides to tell the details, since in his opinion everything is fine. The execution will take place in 2 days. She is also deprived of her status and is currently in prison. Blue-eyed asks the question that interests her. Does the mother admit her cruel treatment of her daughter? Of course the girl denies it to the last, trying to get out of the water dry. Not only Aisha was exposed, the maids are trying to drag each other to the bottom in an attempt to get a lighter sentence. They are not succeeding, but still. All their confessions coincide with Valerie's statements. Therefore, they too will suffer the most severe form. His Majesty has long since decided what he needs to do. Bowing down, the little girl promises that she will follow orders. She is grateful for the help. After a little hesitation, the young man asks to raise his head. He did what should have happened a long time ago. The man looks at the children. He has long noticed some discrepancies. They seem to be the same age as Erlant's, but the girl seems like an adult compared to him. The blonde can't help but make a remark that is somehow connected. The boy addresses Valerie by name every time he does it, only in this way. Despite the fact that they are the same age, Bello the younger is Millard's sister, so she must be called Aunt. The young man does not understand what this sudden change is. The blonde freezes in horror, her face distorted for a second by a strange grimace. This is too harsh a request to take into account the family status which had been ignored before. The blonde sadly lowers his eyes. Despite everything, he would like them to call each other by name. It is not up to him to decide. He needs to ask Valerie first. Running closer, the hero quietly asks if he can behave like this. Almost no one addresses the prince by name. Of course, he is such an important person, so this is logical. In the end, one of the few who was allowed to do this was the aunt. They were the same age, and both were of royal blood, so there would be no problems. The little girl refuses until the very end, until everything is over. The boy can do anything, so she quickly agrees that everything should be exactly this way. The king also gives his consent as soon as he hears that his sister thinks it's normal. Erlans climbs in for a hug as soon as he hears all the news. It suits him. Exactly 2 days have passed since that incident. The children are sitting in the room reading books. This morning is special. The execution of the former empress will take place. Very soon, the woman would be taken to the scaffold. His Majesty thought about it in advance, so he forbade leaving the palace. The boys were temporarily forbidden to go outside. Of course, a normal adult would not allow children to watch such a terrible sight. Although this is right, the heroine still wanted everything to be a little different. It would be easier at least a little. Erlans gets up from the sofa and asks to follow him. He is not mistaken when he understands that the girl wants to look at her mother, at least for this last time. Even though they can't go out, they still won't go straight to the place of execution. They'll just watch from afar. The young man knows one loophole. They'll be able to get out unnoticed. The hero only asks that they trust him. They will think about the consequences. A little later now is not the time to focus on this. The little girl allows them to lead her further. As soon as the boys entered the corridor, a knight appeared behind them, who again reminded them that they were forbidden to go anywhere. Otherwise, it would be a direct violation of the order. Rinoman, as the emperor's right hand, should be next to the man, but somehow he is here. The blonde smiles. He knew that Bruno would be here because he predicted everything. Sir raised an eyebrow. He didn't seem to have any business to attend to. The prince had one request that he'd better fulfill. The kid wants to be led to the palace gates. The interlocutor frowns even more. He does not understand what is the point of saying something so contradictory. Bowing his head, the young man asks for forgiveness in advance, but he will not be able to fulfill the request. Erlans recalls the words of the knight. Everything has its price that must be paid. Last year, a man broke the boy's father's favorite vase, and they said it was Layla. But of course it was Bruno who tried to shift the blame onto someone else. The face shows real horror, which can no longer be hidden. The hero does not understand how the information became known. It turned out that it was accidentally overheard when the man was talking to the queen. Mother made a vase as a gift for her husband. He wouldn't let even Renauman get away with something like that. But now he's trying to hide behind the girl's back. The man doesn't know how to react to this. Belov always makes people around him regret that they ever got involved with them looking at the princess. The knight begs her to do something. The girl begs to be let through. She takes advantage of the opportunity. They will quietly watch from afar. Nothing more. The king will not even notice. The girl asks so desperately that it is simply impossible to refuse. When he goes outside, the guy hears the whispers of the maids. Everyone knows that the guys are not allowed to leave their chambers. Surely Renauman has a reason, so it was quickly forgotten. Finally, the culprits are brought out. The second division is responsible for their movements. A familiar voice was heard from behind, which I didn't want to hear. The king had definitely given an order, but somehow the children ran out into the street. Sir Bruno has to explain what happened. A squad of knights standing in the distance solves the problem by greeting His Majesty. Aisha realized that the emperor was nearby. Turning around, she collided with the eyes of her daughter Valerie, immediately hid behind the man. Belov is ungrateful. She will not be able to live in peace after what she did to her own blood. The kingdom will never love her, no matter what attempts she makes. A monster like the blonde needs to be gotten rid of quickly. There is fear in her eyes, although in reality, the threats do not seem as terrible as in her past life. The woman looks broken and unhappy. It is hard to believe that the girl suffered so much. Because of her, it was precisely because of what was happening that Millerge did not want the family to see each other. The blonde orders the girl to be taken out of his sight so that she doesn't get in the way. She continues to resist asking for the dirty hands to be removed from hers. The squad tries to drag the body forward, although she continues to wriggle like a lizard. The screams become even louder. They spread throughout the garden. Valerie will never get the love she deserves. Once she loses her value, she will be thrown away like unwanted trash. Finally, a hand covers the maiden's mouth. The insult is probably enough. Bruno looks fierce. The knights seem to have forgotten how to shut up crazy criminals. While the showdown continues, Erlance places his hand on Valerie's hand, asking her not to take everything that was said to heart. It means nothing. The blue-eyed girl accepts the support and smiles. The words of her former mother will not hurt her anymore. Certainly from such a person, she quietly says the last goodbye. The girl stood there until Aisha had passed through the main gate and was out of sight, watching as the figure grew smaller with each step. When it became quieter, His Majesty turned to his right hand. It seems that the Second Templar will have to return to training again. This will be passed on to Hortz. Bruno is no exception. The girl does not know if everything will be okay. Erlance thinks that the boy is not afraid of anything. The father is very lenient when it comes to the knight. Now is not the time to worry about others. Now the man turns to the children. He is very interested in listening to their excuses. It is worth being prepared. For now, Bruno will go with them to the Fernando Palace, where they will wait for His Majesty, and it will not be long before they finally see each other again. Sitting in the main hall, the guys look at a tray of goodies. The boy suggests that the girl should get some chocolate chip cookies. They're probably very tasty. Until now, the blue-eyed girl cannot believe that everything is really happening. She did not hope for a good attitude or a new life without a drop of pain. Even thinking about the blonde returning from the past, and now everything is working out for her, is already strange. I want to hope that it is not in vain. The beauty's hand is shaking very badly. She herself did not notice how it started. The nephew asks worriedly if this is a reaction to what happened recently. The heroine exhales. She should explain it's like a dream. So the boy doesn't need to worry. He has many of his own real concerns in this world. While it's hard for Valerie to talk about her condition, it's worth remembering that there is now a family that loves the Bells very much. What the beauty thinks about will never happen. You need to focus on the present, remaining as positive as possible. The heroine still thinks that all this is more like something unreal. The girl asks if the boy is sure that he wants her to become his family. The blonde laughs slightly. The question is addressed to nowhere they are related by blood. And it has been that way since birth. Unnecessary worries are not for the better. In fact, Valerie really likes everything. This situation suits her very well. She says true words of gratitude. There was a knock on the door. Kyle, the chief servant and butler, asks if their highnesses had rested well. About several hours had passed. In fact, the man came to Sir Bruno and asked if he had a free minute. They go out the door. The conversation drags on a bit. Blue-eyed eats another cookie, asking her friend what it is about. There is only one assumption. It is connected with the execution, thus tied to Aisha. That's all that can be said now, unless you ask directly. The details won't be clear. It's also quite logical. After half an hour, the knight returned. As it turned out, they say that the execution ceremony was over. His Majesty will soon return back to the castle. He needs to discuss something. The blue-eyed girl looks at him with fear. She is sure that this is not the end, but she nods. Agreeing with what she was told, the story of the former empress is finished. A period has been put. The girl apologizes for bothering Rinoman. She didn't want him to have to shoulder even more problems, which he would eventually have to sort out. There was no way out. The man sits down. Smiling, he asks to call her by name. There is nothing to apologize for. The little girl did what she thought was right. She just wanted to see her mother one last time. What happened in the end was called a fair deal. as the children promised the secret about the vase would be kept secret, so nothing bad would happen. The girl promises that she won't even mention what happened. That's her promise. The brunette asks what they're going to do when Millard comes back. Bruno will spend most of his time carrying sandbags on the training ground, but he's not sure about the guys. Erlance takes responsibility. Valerie better stay where she is, and not worry her father won't lay a finger on her. The little girl is against it. She too must suffer a righteous punishment. In this case, the boy will also be there. He wants to do what he suggests. Instead, turning his girlfriend towards him, he begins to whisper ideas in her ear. Hearing the words, the girl froze in horror. She asks if the young man is serious. Only Valerie can handle this, but she is still not sure of anything. If he does what he planned, then his father most likely won't be able to scold and punish Belov. So much the blonde doesn't know how it will all turn out, but it's still worth trying. His Highness returned. He called the crown prince and the princess to talk. The heroine immediately gets scared. She was not ready for such a rapid development of events. The man looks at her with the most stern gaze. She should at least try to apologize for what she did recently. The blue-eyed girl cannot utter a word. The girl begins to speak. She wanted to see her mother one last time before she went to execution. For some reason, the desire came suddenly. Initially, she thought that this would only help her truly realize that she was finally free from cruelty and violence, that there was no turning back. It's time to do as the nephew suggested. The beauty looks with sweet eyes, asking if she will be punished after everything that happened. It seems that this is definitely the end. The girl is so tense that she doesn't dare move. It's as if someone is holding her. I want to hope that everything worked out. A menacing look makes you give in and understand that the end has come. The little girl is ready to apologize like, well, they say that they won't punish you. She starts smiling even more than before. The hero won't swear the punishment will remain. The hand reaches forward, and now he has to cringe. Nothing happened. The man gently stroked the girl on the top of her head. Millard will continue to touch her head without warning. He hopes that the child will get used to it faster. This is her real punishment. Valerie doesn't have to be afraid anymore. She's not being forced, because if something doesn't suit her, she has every right to refuse what they do to her. Since it's getting dark, His Majesty will most likely let the children go. They should get ready for bed. Bruno also wants to leave, but he is reminded that he is no longer a child, which means he will remain in the hall. They needed to discuss something. They had already talked about it. Before the execution, the young man had managed to become quite impudent. Turning around, he expressed fear. Rinaman pretended that he was doing well, and behaved like that in front of Valerie. But that was not the case at all, because he is also a person with feelings. The man held the position of commander of the knights, which made him look old and tired. He did not want to go to the training ground like a boy, making his sweet eyes direct like Valerie's. Then he asks if they are going to punish him. What he saw almost gave His Majesty a heart attack. Just a little more, and his interlocutor would have become the murderer of a member of the Imperial family. The brunette doesn't understand why it didn't work for him. He has completely lost his conscience, considering that he is an adult. Such behavior is not the best thing that can happen. Eyes almost burning as anger pours out. The friend is ordered to grab the sandbags and return to the training ground. It didn't take long for the news of Aisha's death to be known, and naturally this story plunged the entire palace, including the inhabitants and servants, into chaos. It is not surprising that Bruno returned that same day with a strange expression on his face. The woman was killed by stones thrown by the crowd before she could be taken to the guillotine. Her end was little different from what it was in her past life, when the people rose up in elemental flames against her, because the case of the attempted poisoning of Karina was revealed. The empress was a magnanimous person who cared for her people even after the death of her husband, the good Kalis. The people did not forget this mercy, and with their own hands condemned the murderer on behalf of the ruler. On the other hand, the situation is very different from what happened in the previous life, because the girl revealed the fact of violence before Aisha poisoned Layla. Therefore, public opinion tends to sympathize with the little girl, unlike in her previous life, where everyone said that even Valerie should be killed. In any case, it is not so important. Now all this will end when the abilities to control ice that were passed on from that life are revealed. As long as the fear of power is ingrained in people's minds, Belov won't be able to get out of the water dry. It will take time for everything to get better again, transforming. Everything in this room is new things that the emperor and his wife got, especially for the new member of the family. Probably this means that they care about her, because it would be more logical to just bring everything that is needed from the Ronin palace. The little girl doesn't know if she has gotten used to the fact that she has a family over all this time. With these warm people, everything is different. If only they were nearby now, again, there are only futile hopes. It is not clear why the girl feels guilty about hiding her abilities from everyone she knows, even her brother. Millard, even in the past, was always kind, gave a music box, and secretly provided McLeod Castle with everything necessary for life and a normal time. To this day, the child does not know what the young man was thinking about then, and she will never know, but it was only thanks to him that she managed to survive in those frozen lands. The blonde agrees to reveal her dark secret. She will tell him the whole truth, get help, and even accept any consequences. Any outcome is also important. There is no escape from it. After all, Millard is none other than the Emperor, so the abilities can be useful to him. The girl wants to make the power come in handy. The only thing is that she has no idea how to do it. From books, she has only read ancient texts in the castle all her life. She has never gone anywhere and has not had contact with people. Erlance noticed the sad expression on the girl's face and asked if everything was okay. The boy was good at noticing even the smallest detail. Breakfast was over. The crown prince was leaving for classes, so he said goodbye. The girl would be left alone. For some reason, there was a strange tugging feeling inside that would not give her peace. Blue-eyed screams at herself. It's time to wake up now is not the time for idleness. While Erlance is studying hard, the heroine has her own task. The princess, as part of the family, needs to find how to educate herself. Passing by the garden, she hears the maids talking about how spring has definitely begun. The days are gradually getting warmer, so for a while you won't be able to enjoy shaved ice. In the summer, you would like something cold, but not now. With the salaries that maids earn, they can't even dream of something like that. It's one thing if a person is a nobleman, but such commoners can only afford to pay for ice a few times a winter. However, this is the Imperial Palace. They could feed their staff. That would be nice. The princess stopped. Her attendant asks what happened. The beauty realized that she has every chance to become useful to others. The little girl asks to do something herself. The girls whisper, not understanding whether they did something wrong. One of them suggests that Her Highness should let them know if any problems arise. She exhales, turning to Fernanda almost immediately. Now that the princess has grown up, she wants to try at least washing herself before this. She never had the opportunity to do anything alone. If so, they need to at least finish the preparations first. The women nod, and so they will leave the heroine alone for now. Although the excuse was completely stupid, it seems that the words were believed. The mission was half successful. The heroine heads to another room. Her Highness will be waiting outside, so you can call at any time if you need anything, closing the door. Valerie is finally glad that she is alone. Stretching out her hands, the blonde is about to summon some power. This flow of energy becomes larger, forming an eagle-sized crystal hanging in the air. As expected, initially, the abilities are still the same, despite the fact that the child has regressed, decreasing in size and development. Everything is exactly the same as it was before. It's better to first reveal it and prove its usefulness than the last time when I had to achieve this high level. The frozen ice cube begins to melt gradually. Perhaps because Belov is younger, it is not possible to do it so delicately with strength. The heroine will definitely have to visit His Majesty. After she fully restores all her skills, she will have to try harder. If even the slightest mistake appears, Valerie will be exposed as a dangerous person. She wants to have a white streak in her life, and yet the girl is glad that she remembers the sensations of using her abilities. She did not think that such a thing would remain a reality. It is good that, in the future, she will be able to be useful to society in everything she can. The little girl comes out of the bathroom, saying that she finally washed herself first. She poured a lot of hot water to hide her cold. The child took washing herself seriously, for this one can only praise. The girl would not like to show herself in a bad light, so she hides the lie, trying to do it as best as possible. Next time, she is also going to wash herself. 10 days have passed no more. The maids are a little surprised, but eventually promise that they will quickly prepare everything. The women assume that the baby is not very comfortable showing her wounds to others. Her Highness needs some time. The girls will be as patient as possible and will wait. They don't have any other option, anyway. No one has any idea what the beauty does. When she locks herself in a room, she continues to practice her powers. Each time it gets even better, the ice is more frozen and easier to melt as soon as the desire appears. The little girl decided that now everything is finished. There are a few last touches left. Initially, you want to hope that the meeting will end well. It's scary to even imagine. But if something goes wrong, you will have to use your abilities to escape. The baby refuses to return to MacLeod. The princess arrived in Fernand, where His Majesty the King resides, near the entrance. There is a detachment of knights, and even Sir Bruno, he has a gloomy face. But as soon as the two meet eyes, the man immediately smiles. Sitting down on one knee, he asks why the beauty has arrived. It is not difficult to guess that she wants to see the emperor, preferably quickly. She shyly says that she has an important topic. Turning around, you can see that there is a brunette in front of you, who is smiling, in fact. This is more frightening than it shows reality. The child does not understand why she is smiling like that. This is an important matter, but His Majesty is probably too busy. Bruno remembers that Millard only needs to fill out some simple paperwork today, but overall, everything is fine. He will be able to talk. Rex was sent to inform the ruler about the arrival of the child. He is sad because it seems that the smile only scared him. Here is a blonde standing in front of a closed door. She doesn't know where to start, but gathering her courage, she knocks. A voice invites her to come in. The little girl is already inside, but seeing a stack of documents, she invites her to come a little later. In fact, there is absolutely nothing to worry about. A man will quickly cope with all his tasks. No matter how busy he is, he cannot send his little sister away when she came to say something important. The child is invited to the table, where there are already mugs of tea and cakes. It's time to talk. He heard that the topic is quite important. The guy wants to hear to learn more to understand. There is one thing the princess would like to ask Valerie, before opening her mouth, falls to her knees and bows her head. Millard, frightened, asks to get up, but they will not listen to him, because there is something else here. The blonde does not understand what the beauty wants to ask for. She asks to allow her to continue to stay in the Imperial Palace, under the protection of His Majesty, so she will be much calmer. The place is gradually becoming her home. If the little girl only wanted to ask for this, she has nothing to worry about. It is quite natural that she can stay here as a member of the family. Protection is also something that a man should do as an older brother. He simply has no choice. Raising her head, Valerie swallows loudly. There is something else she would like to ask the young man about. When he hears this, perhaps he will even change his mind. But this is not so important. The main thing is that there is no burden on her soul from the hidden secret. The blonde doesn't understand what is being discussed. It's strange for him to hear something unconscious. It turns out that the lady has some kind of power. She can freeze, that's what this ability is called. Blue-eyed is noticeably worried. Maybe she should run right now or wait a little. Somehow. All this is too complicated to understand what is what and why. Now it seems that Millard understands why his words did not calm the baby down. It seemed that at least the beauty's mother knew about the abilities, but it seems that no one except the girl herself was aware of anything. The girl could even hide it until the end, keeping it only for herself. But she decided to do it differently. Valerie didn't want to pay for the service her older brother had rendered her in this way. She knows it's a shameless request, but she would really like to receive help one more time. That's the only thing she lacks right now. The ruler nods in agreement. The little girl has already opened her mouth to begin persuasion, but then her face is distorted with disbelief. Just like that, she got what she did not dare to hope for. It was dangerous to allow the owner of an ability that had terrified the entire empire to remain in the royal palace. But for the man, even this was not a problem. He knew that this was not someone who would abuse his ability to harm anyone. If the lady had a desire to bring horror to the kingdom, it would have happened a long time ago. Of course, Aisha herself would have suffered first, because her attitude as a mother was terrible. It was Valerie who appeared all covered in scars. She was defenseless and quiet, because she didn't think that after that, she had a chance for anything. The blonde would never be able to forget those frightened eyes full of pain. This child is also the one to whom Erlens shows unconditional affection, which he has not shown to anyone before. The young man hopes that his decision will not be wrong. And then we will see. This also concerns the fact that now, although it was clear that this decision was associated with great risk, he believed the beauty she shrinks and begins to apologize. This is something that should not have been done. Millard calmly explains that at such moments, people usually say, "Thank you," smiling the little girl sincerely. "Thanks." She is happy that everything ended more or less well. The young man thanks in return, but only for the beauty's courage. Besides all that, there is something else that the king wants to ask. He is curious about what level the girl can use the freezing power. She has full control over her abilities. She has had enough practice. It would be faster to show it in person than to explain it. The girl herself suggests it. But for this, it is important to go to a place where no traces will remain. It seems that we are talking about water. The blonde really wants to see. He still doesn't look very friendly. He doesn't smile anymore. They can go to the bathroom. The door is nearby, as is the room itself. It will be easier. While the heroine nods, she is still thinking about how busy she needs to be. To build a toilet nearby. Going inside, the beauty gives a sign that now everything will begin. Energy gradually accumulates in her hands, something a little dark. A second later, there were many different crystals of different sizes around the girl. Deftly changed the ice cube into a cube, then into a circle, then even into Erlen's head. She had already said that she had good control over her powers, but the young man did not think that everything was so wonderful. They turned to Valerie, as is known in the world. There are no secrets that would be constantly delayed. It would be completely wrong. The man is going to make an offer that he had time to think about. Just in case, it would be nice to use your abilities for something useful, so that everything is not in vain. If so, the beauty also has a good idea that she is ready to share. The skills can be used to make ice, sell it, and use the money to help people in need. It's like creating a real ice business. The reason for all the problems observed in the ice business was the lack of technology to maintain easily melting ice. The man understands that they will have to somehow twist and turn to make everything end more or less well. It will be a completely different story if the girl does something. If she uses her freezing ability correctly, there will be practically no damage. It will only benefit them. First of all, if the ice supply becomes more active, it will improve people's daily lives. A good deed is not always possible to do. Then even if the abilities are discovered, no one will be able to talk about Valerie in a bad way. It will be done as the beauty wishes. She will give all the rest of the money to His Majesty. The man smiles, laughing slightly from this enthusiasm. He carefully places his hand on the girl's head. She doesn't need to try to pay him, because she's still at that age where it's natural to receive gifts or favors. And there's nothing wrong with that. The hero asks to simply accept with gratitude. The brother is still the richest man in the empire, so he just needs actions, not payment. The child can keep the profit for himself, but do not forget to donate to charities as well. The good deeds that the girl will do will one day become a force that will protect her. After this conversation, the princess is going to leave. There is no point in staying around anyway. Already at the door, the little girl stops, because the man tells her about the bracelet he found on the floor. It's strange that the beauty doesn't wear it, but on the contrary, carries it in her pocket. This thing is quite simple, nothing unusual. It's a bit unpleasant, but the beauty tries to explain it was for an emergency. If she had to escape from the castle, the king suggests that it's something like money that could help in the future. The man starts laughing. He can't seem to control himself. Everything in the girl's room belongs to her, but for some reason, among everything, she managed to take the simplest thing, thinking that stealing from the castle is a bad idea. The girl herself did not notice how she turned into a tomato. Her face turned red, either from anger or from shame. Her brother was sorry that he behaved like that, but it was impossible to stop laughing if the little girl returned back to herself. They would stop teasing her. Erlens must have been looking for the girl for a long time. She promised to return soon. The heroine does not know how to react. She thought that she would be scolded in the end. She was worried for no reason, bending over the girl, still sincerely, "Thanks for today's help." The man nods too. He's thinking about who would be perfect for the job. He'll need to invite one special guest, but that'll be sorted out a little later. The girl goes outside, realizing that everything ended more than well. She was lucky that she didn't have to worry anymore. A knight appeared behind her, who apologizes in advance for interrupting her journey. He introduces himself as Rex, one of the Emperor's squad. The little girl involuntarily remembers that terrible smile that this particular character gave her. The young man asks for forgiveness for how he behaved earlier. His behavior was probably offensive, but he didn't think then. The child seemed very worried that day, so the man tried to do his best, trying to smile and be welcoming. But it seems he went overboard in the end. It seems he meant making the princess laugh. A second later, the brunette falls to his knees, sincerely asking for forgiveness. Her Majesty has the right to call him whatever she pleases. He will gratefully accept any fate that awaits him, and will not even argue anymore. The blonde immediately worries. She doesn't think that, in the end, everything will become so serious. It's a common thing, just some knight dared to insult a member of the royal family, and deserves punishment for it. He says Rex did everything out of concern. The baby does not consider him guilty. The princess needs to learn not to be so benevolent. That's the relationship between master and knight. That's where it should end. The captain always says that you have to do what the emperor orders, and so does everyone else in the castle. The leader came running. He immediately starts apologizing too. He's sorry that in the end, he was unable to keep an eye on one of his squad. He wants to hope that the princess does not hold a grudge if Rex managed to do something wrong. The girl laughs. Nothing happened. The sir approached her because he was worried. Now the man looks more like a puppy who looks with devoted eyes. Bruno decides to introduce the young man. Since they met in this way, despite his young age, this man is the second most capable of the entire order. They will see Rex often, just like with his master. The brunette asks to take care of him, and Her Majesty says the same thing. It's great that the skills have already reached such heights. In fact, the guy should try even harder and become a good knight for the emperor's family. Looking at the two, the lady quietly wished that absolutely everyone would treat her with such kindness. Matias Osvalio is the half-brother of the emperor. He flatly refused the title of Archduke, and replacing his unmarried uncle became Duke Osvalio. For him, it was easier and, of course, most importantly, more profitable. There was no one better to produce ice since he owned a mountain called Hern. And without thinking twice, Millard chose him, realizing that he really had no other options. The girl sits at the table opposite the king. She guessed that she was probably called to meet this character. He has already entered the palace, so he will arrive soon for now. So that it would not be boring, the hero holds out the cakes. Last time the girl did not even touch the sweets. This time they became chic. Taking a small bite, the beauty chuckles. It turned out to be even tastier. The brain again returns to thoughts about the future business. In any case, Osvalio is more suitable for this role than others. The problem is that it is unknown whether he will recognize the new member of the family or not. Of all the people possible, Matias hated Valerie and her mother the most, because he was there when Karina was almost poisoned. The girl does not know if a person who almost witnessed her mother's death can help the daughter of an enemy. The door swings open, making you freeze and literally shake. The man looks tired or down. Either he was always like that, or something just happened. The road was exhausting. In Valerie's memories, the young man was completely different. He always tried to take care of himself as much as possible, did not take off his glasses, and looked as if that was the end of his problems. But now the hero falls onto the sofa, not even paying attention to the girl sitting next to him. Probably he just did not see her without his glasses. Finally, he can breathe easy. By the way, it's all because of his brother. If they had followed the plan, none of this would have happened. He rushed to the royal castle from Garand for 4 whole days without a break. I would like to know why he had to return so early. A good investment opportunity arose, so the brunette was immediately called. His Majesty thinks that he should engage in some kind of business. This has never happened before. The man asks again to make sure of the reality again. It will definitely suit his brother's taste. Because the future is connected with ice, the brunette does not understand. Either he is being wound up or new technologies have appeared, while he was absent from the castle. I would like to hope that the second option. Probably 10 years have passed while Matias was in the kingdom of Garand. He laughs, assuming that his brother is already 40 years old. He can't say anything in response, because they haven't seen each other for too long to judge. In any case, this is not true. There is a way that will allow some improvements to be made, and it will definitely be successful. The brunette does not quite understand what the point of this rush is. He needs to see the business plan, then they will talk. There is a way to use the abilities that already exist. Only now turning around, the young man notices Valerie. He finally put glasses on his nose, and now he feels better. It is not entirely clear what she forgot here, and where that very power suddenly came from. Since they will be business partners in the future, a reception was held to exchange formal greetings. Belov must show what she can do with ice, since her power to create is quite dangerous. It is better to take on another role. The little girl specifies what she will have to do. The task is to maintain the temperature of the ice for a long time. It is necessary to leave as few traces as possible. There is hope that she will definitely cope with this task. It is better for the brunette to see for himself what it is not so easy to figure it out. Entering the bathroom, the beauty unfolds the energy. Several small ice balls fall onto the tray. The girl condensed cold air into pieces of ice. If you put it in a production machine, it will, as the man said, be able to remain frozen. Such an idea is quite tolerable. Osvalio falls onto the sofa, not understanding what is happening. This is really the power of ice, as he warned in advance. With such abilities, success is guaranteed. But that is not all. The elements are not the main component. Investments are needed. All the horror does not cover something good. Matias will never have anything to do with the daughter of that disgusting woman. Obviously, the young man still hasn't heard the news. That's obvious because he was busy. The girl assures that everything is fine. His Majesty does not need to insist on anything, nothing to worry about. The fun will soon begin when the hero tells a story that deserves attention. That man died some time ago. The man's face is distorted by a grimace that he had probably never seen before. The young man will not repeat it twice, so the explanation will only come now. After about half an hour, the man was almost crying, asking how much longer they could torture him like this. Of course, it was probably too much. The little girl remembers the description of her brother very well. They said that he was so cold-blooded that if you hit him, not a drop of blood would be spilled, a man who would not even bat an eye if someone died. It was him. Now the hero is crying. You can't trust rumors. It all seems even more unrealistic. The blue-eyed girl asks Millard if he knew that it would be like this. Even though the acquaintance doesn't look like that, he only sheds tears. There is a lot of sympathy in him. They hand Matias a contract that he should read before signing. It's good that nothing was broken. The cup on the table is worth more than the bracelet. The girl again behaved like a real child. Finally, having finished checking all the pages, the brunette puts the contract aside. Everything seems to have been observed. He shouldn't need anything else. Everything will be fine. There's just one thing left regarding Ader's palace. Millard will be grateful if he is released. It's better to do it before the day after tomorrow. The request is rather sudden. It's not clear what the brother is going to do with an empty estate, and even without servants. It turned out that the place would now belong to Valerie. It was impossible to allow her to remain with Erlans forever, having nothing of her own. In any case, Osvalio had already moved out, so there would be no problems with this task. Blue-Eyed doesn't mind staying in the palace of Rainin, but it's better to take it while they give it to him. When the brunette first saw him, he wasn't that good, and the location is unfortunate. According to the contract, the hero must visit the girl every time, as if he is trapped. In that case, there is nothing more to say. The heroine will accept this gift with gratitude. The problem is finally solved. There is a plan to get rid of everything that was in the castle. The rest does not matter, but there is something to take care of. There was one valuable thing left there. The heroine wants to take it back for herself. You can go there right now. After these words, the little girl ran away without looking back. It became interesting what she would bring with her. The blonde looks at his brother, not understanding why he is standing there. It seems he is not going to go anywhere. As punishment for his behavior, he will have to work as a porter. The brunette followed the beauty. She was small, so she didn't go far. He hadn't been in the castle for a long time. The main hall was in terrible disarray, in which it was quite problematic to find anything. Now the hero understood what had happened only when the beauty leaned over the shards on the floor. Matias yells at the young man, not understanding how he could give a valuable thing to the daughter of that woman. He said that he would give the box as a gift to Mrs. Layla. If the man only knew, he would never have agreed to help. The emperor didn't have any special intentions. His sister was the same age as his son, Still a child, he just really cared about it. The condition that would stay with him forever? The guilt before the girl. The brunette feels like he's about to burst into tears. Flashbacks hit his consciousness, barely allowing him to emerge back. The young man came because his brother asked, looking at what's in his hands. He asks if this is what Valerie went for. The box is all broken. It could be a bit dangerous for the child. You need to think in advance. The girl won't throw it away anyway. Matias didn't say anything about it. He wants the thing to be given back to him. The baby will have no choice but to pass it back. Exhaling and trying to calm down, the hero suggests going back to Ader's castle. They go out into the garden and walk forward, being at a short distance. Stopping Osvalio wants to confess that in fact he hated Valerie because she was that woman's daughter. She cared so much about her child, and even outwardly they were so similar that it was impossible to think of anything good. Then it finally became clear what he had to go through. The young man believed only what he saw and hated innocent people, and he was incredibly ashamed of this. This will never happen again. Although it is a bit late, the young man apologizes for judging the girl all this time. He is incredibly sorry that he caused pain with his attitude, making the situation only worse in general. The man does not ask to accept the apology right now, but promises that he will prove his words with actions, and the baby will be able to decide whether to forgive or not. The choice will remain hers. In any case, it will be exactly like that. It's good that the hero is honest with the girl, but she wants to say something in response. She knew the reasons for the hatred and thought that she still couldn't do anything about it. But this does not mean that she was not hurt. The feelings were still the same. In her opinion, what happened was unfair. She thanks him for the apology. The girl believes that Matias is sincere, so she decided that it would be much easier to agree with his words. Everything is so simple. The man said that he would prove with his actions what his sincere attitude is. One can only hope that his word will be kept. The brother does not know how to react to this. He slaps himself on the cheeks, realizing that he is real trash. The girl tries to stop the guy, but it seems to be no use. She screams that she cut her hand. It needs to be treated quickly after these words. She hands over her glasses. It's better to apologize for the fact that Matias was confused. The boy takes the child in his arms and carries him back to the castle. Rumors really can't be trusted. He is not at all stern. As they say, servants meet him at the threshold. They heard that the master went to the kingdom of Garand, but returned back so quickly. The man had returned not long ago, and accordingly, had not communicated with all those gathered for a long time. Coming closer, the maids froze as soon as they saw the beauty, without a doubt. These were the ones who had been looking after their brother for a long time. The princess was about to say something when one of the maids exclaimed, "Her Highness should never be dressed like that." She should have been more careful. The little girl must not be very comfortable. Looking at the gloomy expression on her face, she just couldn't say anything. Matias asks to speak one at a time, so as not to disturb him. He always wears earlens like that, and nothing happened. The man apologizes to the beauty. He should have let her go long ago, so as not to make things worse. The brunette asks the little girl if she had a hard time. Because of the gentleman's rudeness, they want to offer a sincere apology on his behalf. The blue-eyed girl waves her hands. She, on the contrary, is glad that she ended up in the castle sooner. The girl pulls out a candy if the child doesn't mind. She would like to give it to her. It is a handmade delicacy from a famous confectionery. Everyone she knows likes them. The girl raises her hand, not understanding why she is still worried. Without any reason, smiling again, the interlocutor asks to call her Nella. That would be best. Nodding, the beauty agrees. His face changes, as does his expression, as soon as she notices the cut on his hand, menacingly asking, "Who dared to do such a thing?" The man hastily explains that it is not what one might think. It all happened because of some box. The maids immediately relaxed. The explanation was more than enough for them. At first, they were a little scared, not thinking about who dared to do something so terrible. It was nice that they behaved like that in the presence of Matias. It would be better to call the Imperial physician if you send someone younger. She will be fast as a doe, so you won't have to wait too long. It will be a real tragedy if a small scar remains on the young lady's hand. Osvalio asks Nella and Lector to come with them, and the rest will go do their own thing. For now, the castle needs some maintenance. The two nod, but the rest are not quite happy about what they are being sent to do. It's not what they wanted to get. Of course, the man hadn't been here for a long time, but it seemed that all this was too harsh. He should have said it more softly. Nevertheless, deciding not to interfere, the brunette doesn't comment in any way, asking for snacks to be served for him and Valerie later. The girl is already leaving, but before that, she decides to turn around and wave goodbye. Of course, she couldn't do nothing, so she smiles. She looks like her mother, but the atmosphere emanating from the child is completely different kind. And calm, completely different. Matias was stubborn now. He was forced to take care of the youngest. And it seems that for him, life was divided into before and after. Since the master brought the baby to the castle, personally, they definitely need to try hard, showing that only in this way, everything will be fine. The royal physician arrived. The maiden thought he was too busy to come, because of some small scratch on his hand. It seemed that Hannah would appear at the door, but there was some stern man there whose name was Weldo Posit. The little girl understands that she has strange feelings connected with this person. The girl remembers the moment when she felt incredibly bad. The brunette complained that he was forced to deal with bringing down the temperature. It was a trifling thing. A talented person like him should have definitely remained the emperor's personal physician, and not wasted his time in such a place on a princess who had no money, no influence, no connections. Now, Osvalio sits in front of him. He immediately begins to grovel. Trying to curry favor as much as possible, the future of the empire seems bright, thanks to the excellent leadership of the Duke and his family. What shines most is the appearance and strength of spirit of His Majesty, which become more perfect every day. No one else can compare with such a great man. It seems that Matias doesn't like this at all. He rudely asks to stop flattering and instead finally examine the child. Veldo nods. He was just about to do this, since he has nothing else to do here. Still, before starting, the hero asks if it is necessary to examine the young man first, and only then the princess. After all, she can wait a little. The brunette talks about the cheek. A wound on such a precious body is a problem. The man is advised to sit back while others do everything for him. The young lady's wounds can wait. She, after all, does not deserve to be first in line. The servants standing behind wince with disgust. This man has always been lousy, but now he should just leave. I want to curse him just because this behavior seems extremely terrible. The number of palace doctors has just been reduced from 3 to 2. I hope he doesn't get too angry. The lecturer is asked to lower the curtain at the same moment. Posit is grabbed, his arms are twisted. He pretends that he does not understand why His Majesty is suddenly acting in this way. In fact, this is considered incredibly offensive in some ways, even too much. Valdo says suddenly, after openly ignoring Valerie. The man himself does not understand what is wrong. He remembers how Matias considered the princess a beam in his eye. Thus it seems only excuses serve. They are indivisibly absurd. In this case, the young man decides to ask if he hates the bells. This does not mean that the royal title automatically disappears. It actually remains. No one like the lower class has the right to look down on the girl. To some extent, he is right, because once the Duke himself hated his younger sister, but this does not change the situation. As you can see, now everything has changed radically, and this means that he will not allow anyone to offend this bright child. The man will personally report what happened to the emperor, so that's the end of the conversation. He orders the man to be taken out, and can't wait for him to finally get the punishment he deserves. That would be the best thing. Posit loses his last drops of composure. Someone so tactless and stupid could not have been in the palace all this time, but finally he was thrown out. The girl feels like it's all her fault. If she knew, she would have just asked for medicine and dealt with it herself. The princess thinks that she is fine, and has actually even gotten used to this kind of treatment. Matias asks not to say that, because he can help her, so she won't have to endure this alone. If there is anyone else who behaves just as badly, he wants to be informed. The man had noticed it before, but now it's even more striking. The lady is quite thin for her age. She needs to gain weight, although it seems that she has been eating well lately and is trying to become better. They hand the girl something. The bandage is finished. They are talking about the guy's cheek. He says that he hit himself. Lecter freezes in horror, unable to believe that this person did something like this on his own. Usually, this is not considered something normal. He was sorry that he was rude to Valerie, so he had to accept the punishment. In this way, there was simply no other way out. The girl, of course, was against this. But in the end, everything ended completely differently. Osvalio had done so many things before that deserved punishment, but at that time, everything was different. The girl was worried about his future. Now that he has matured, can already think rationally. He is glad that the man regrets his mistakes and tries to correct them. Matias pretends to be incredibly tired of this. He doesn't like the way he's treated at all. When the owner changes, this behavior will probably remain. It's even a little sad to realize nothing can be changed. Larson does not understand what was just said. He quietly asks again, and they explain to him that as they have already noticed the new mistress is a princess, he and his brother have already discussed this and even approved it with documents. It would be easier to take care of Belov than a man, so it would be better to try. If suddenly he saw that the guys were behaving inappropriately, they would be immediately taken to the residence so as not to interfere. In fact, the heroes were incredibly bored all these 4 years, that the master was not in the palace. They are happy that it becomes more lively. Everyone is immediately informed about the news. It feels like it is a festival or something bigger. So much joy. The day of the move arrived in the castle of Atera. They had already packed all the things into suitcases. Fernanda reported that Veldo had been caught in corruption and sent to prison on the outskirts, as it happens with such bad people. The maid dressed up Valerie. She is very beautiful today, and the dress suits her perfectly. Today, she needs to greet everyone properly in order to be accepted. Erlens quietly asks if the maiden will really leave him in Ater. Without doing anything, they will not play anymore. The beauty must do this. She cannot stay in such a place forever. She thanks the boy for saying so, but nothing can be done. The luggage is also almost packed. There is no way back, unfortunately. The girl suggests that no matter what, the blonde should visit her every day, and now they will spend as much time together as before. And if he cannot come, then she will come to him to be close anyway. Matias came in to report something. It turned out that the servants had already packed the luggage, so it was time to go to Otter's palace. Everything was ready, and even Erlens wanted to go, although it was a bit strange because he still had lessons to attend. The brunette still agrees to go together. He doesn't have the strength to resist the flow, so it's easier to do as the guys want. If some kind of ban had been imposed, the young man is sure that everything would not have ended very well. Closing the girl's eyes as soon as they find themselves outside, the man says that he has some kind of surprise opening them. The little girl looks around. There is a beautiful path ahead, many servants who are happy, and of course, flowers that smell nice and lift the mood. The little girl freezes in amazement. She could not have expected something like this. Looking around, she accepts congratulations on the new palace with a smile and thanks for the work done. In fact, it is a huge amount of work. There is something else that cannot be missed on such a day. The chef brings out a cart to take down and show off a cake made literally as tall as a man. Otter should be filled with joy and laughter. This will only do the trick. The man tried to do everything in his power and sincerely hopes that Her Highness will like this food. The baby froze in shock. Fear will appear on her face, which it seems should not even appear. She remembers the day when she celebrated her last birthday in her past life. It was all very sad. She had never had anything like this before, and she didn't think it was something she wanted. The heart beats incredibly hard. The beauty does not know how to react. Something strange is happening, and the feelings make her freeze today. The beauty is the main character. Everything is done especially for her. Now she really is not alone. It's time to believe it. Valerie explains that she has never seen anything like this before, so she was very surprised. Not only is this cake beautiful, but everything that was prepared for her is something completely unforgettable. She is happy as if today was her birthday. The servants are also smiling, looking at how happy the little girl is. It seems that for them too, this is the best day in their lives. Now it's time to blow out the candles. We can't wait any longer, otherwise the sun will start to melt the delicacy, which won't be very good. In fact, this is the first time the beauty has blown out the candles on a cake, so she doesn't know how to do it. The man standing behind her frowns, watching her attempts to do everything right. What she said is probably true. No one has ever thrown a party like this for her. Valerie doesn't even know how to behave. She needs to prepare well for the banquet in honor of her birthday. Osvalio made this decision on her own, but the girl shared it with everyone in the castle, cutting off a piece of the delicacy for everyone. While finishing his piece, Erlens starts talking. looking at this whole atmosphere. He thinks that he can trust the girl to those who have gathered here. Everything will be fine, and he is no longer even worried, not thinking at all that something will be wrong. The boy acts as if he forgot that this is not his friend, but his aunt. The young lady herself is not burdened by anything. On the contrary, she really liked it, and she is simply grateful, although she does not know why she liked the people here. They are nice. From now on, they will all be on the side of the beauty dear servants, so you can trust if a man says that there will be no problems. Belov can only rejoice even more. She smiles. Matias asks about the music box. Obviously, he decided to return to this topic. You can't just leave it broken like that. That wouldn't be very good. You need to take it and fix it. That's a completely realistic task. The brunette explains how this will happen. It will be possible because the most skilled craftsmen work in the Empire. But even though they will do everything possible, it will still not be the same as before. If the beauty does not mind, leave the thing to her brother and then take it. Erlands didn't even go anywhere in the evening. He decided to spend the night with her at least once, to do it before heading back. The heart is still pounding. The girl remembers how, 2 years ago, she was given a box. The reason why the thing remained alive and lasted until this moment is only because it remained hidden from Aisha's eyes. Unfortunately, one day the little girl forgot to hide it. It must be the reason why she somehow managed to start all over again, so that she no longer has to be constantly on guard and afraid that today will be another hurricane of mother emotions. Despite her calmness, the blue-eyed one will never lose her vigilance. This time, she wants to protect herself and her family. Unlike the previous family, these beautiful people taught the heroine completely different ways of showing love. The first one who made her feel needed was Erlands. He made the baby feel comfortable. The girl will protect him until the very end, because she understands that, at the moment, it is quite important. In the morning, Fernanda woke the girl up. She made her surprised, because it seemed she had to go back to Fernand. As it turned out, the beauty could not go back without saying hello. The reason she was absent yesterday was the transfer of duties to another person. This means that the beauty transferred the work she was doing to someone else in the castle. Of course, it is clear what this is and why. But the blonde still has a lot of questions. Blue-eyed wants to ask. It is hard to believe that now the maid will work in Ader, but the emperor's maid, whose status is the highest, after Kamergin, is going to a completely different place. The woman chose her path herself. But still, bowing, she is about to introduce herself again this time. It will be more formal, now her place is the palace of the lady from today. She will serve Her Majesty. This is something unreal. Her eyes light up with happiness. The little girl covers her mouth with her hands, asking Rael if it's true, and she nods again to show her sincere intentions. Yesterday, the child looked for the maid almost all day because she didn't want to leave without saying goodbye. But now her soul felt light. She wanted to sing and dance. There was no thought that it would be great if they could continue to stay together. It sounds like a real dream that the heroine has gotten so much, she wants to jump and skip. But is this normal? His Majesty's maid should not have anything to do with a simple princess. The girl asks not to say such a thing for her. This place is the best, incomparable to anything. Belov has a shocked expression on his face, which actually seems very cute. He has never seen anything like this before. The woman recalls the moment when the heroine first came to the Fernand Palace a few months ago. Rael was the first to see the wounds while bathing. For some reason, she decided to talk about this unpleasant past. So many scars all over her body was something strange. The child must have been in a lot of pain. Fernanda's heart trembled for a moment when she realized that Valerie had been silently enduring all this, not making a sound, even when the soap got somewhere on the wound. At that moment, there was some concern. It was painful to see such a young lady shrinking and watching everything around with apprehension. After several days had passed, she smiled shyly and said, "Thank you, the moment is still remembered because it was imprinted in my memory." Then the beauty was surprised. It turned out that Belov Jr. was a very kind person. This was the first time the girl allowed herself to be known a little better after the wounds were healed. Then Rael thought that she wanted to know even more, because it was extremely important for her, something the beauty got carried away. So she was almost crying. The little girl interrupted the impulse, asking that from now on the maid would always be next to her. Of course, she was not destined to leave again. In fact, the heroine came not only to see and tell the news, it seems that very soon, Her Majesty the Empress will also come there. We should prepare for her meeting, preferably as soon as possible. Layla said that she would come with a tailor, so she plans to sew new clothes for the princess that will suit her taste, leaving the beauty freezes, because there are not brothers, and Sir Renauman. The brunette asks what the emperor is doing here, especially at such a time he has his own business. But for some reason, everything changed when he found himself in this place, deciding to put his tasks aside. His wife said something about outfits for Valerie, so the hero also came. He can get the documents here too. The blonde is glowing with joy for her. What is happening is something special, on a completely different level. She always wanted to do this together if they had a daughter, but she didn't think that God would send her Belov, who also needs beautiful clothes. Sitting down, the little girl assures that what was bought last time is more than enough. But she is abruptly interrupted, saying that this is not true. There was little time then, so the empress bought only ready-made clothes, only what she liked without taking into account the tastes of the child. The blue-eyed one moved to a new place, so this will be a housewarming gift, which is considered quite good. Various things are brought into the room. It seems like there is a whole store here. You can choose something good, but it will take quite a lot of time. Layla wants the little girl to try on everything that is here, thus choosing what she likes the most. The blonde objects, so they agree on several dresses. This is all good, of course, but not to that extent. The first thing is blue. The next one is dark, even better than the previous one. The gold dress is the most suitable. You have to agree with this 100%. Bruno doesn't seem to like this. He thinks it's mean because this color belongs to the Imperial family. The king says that Valerie is part of their family. Matias is the most dissatisfied of all. He thinks that the guys don't understand anything at all. The outfit is made of silk and is softer than the others, so it will be pleasant for the skin, of course. The fabric is shiny, showing that it is an imported product. It will be worn by a child, so you can't rely only on the design. Osvalio's right in his pickiness. About another half hour or an hour passed, when finally the fitting was finished. The little girl quietly asks the lady if she is going to buy everything that is there. Of course she thinks that it will be right, because they chose for quite a long time. It was time to pay for the purchases. The men took out the checks, but in the end, they almost had a fight. Bruno wanted to be the one who would do a good deed on behalf of the Duke, but the Emperor decided that it would be better if it was him. Matias also did not forget to object. Layla laughs lightly, saying that nothing is needed. She managed to pay, because she knew that it would be like this earlier. The heroine ordered to sign checks every time a dress was chosen. Thus the situation was simplified a little. Today was quite a difficult day, and it seems that the child is quite tired. Valerie will have to be carried to the bedroom, because it is time to sleep. The only good thing is that Belov liked everything without exception. Erland said that he would also come after class, but he probably missed it because he had to do some extra assignment. The blonde ends up in bed and immediately closes her eyes. She just stood and measured, but was still too tired. Some time passed. The servants began to envy the people in Atera, because they were flourishing no matter how devilish a woman Aisha was. But her daughter was the sweetest and most kind-hearted. It was necessary to also apply for a transfer. But it seems that the maids came to their senses too late. Some still remain on the side of past beliefs. Now the girl is felt sorry only because she is a child, but no one knows what will happen when she finally grows up a little. Her real parents are long gone. The attitude may change. One of the girls asks her friend to be quieter because someone in the garden might hear it. Seems that Matias has arrived again today. Maybe because the princess is here. He often comes to visit her after the appearance of Her Majesty. The castle has become lively. The child runs down the path straight towards her brother. It's a bit dangerous to run like that, but she doesn't seem to care at all. She heard that Osvalio had arrived, so she decided to see him as soon as possible. The man asks to wait a minute. It is chilly today. If the baby walks around in such light clothes, she might catch a cold, and then nothing good will come of it. So it is worth putting on a jacket. It will become much better. Leaning closer to his brother, the child explains that because of his strength, he cannot catch a cold. However, if it is not hot outside, it is better to listen to what adults say. The boy picked up his sister in his arms and carried her back to the castle, leaving her on the couch. Her hair was ruined. Her hairstyle began to look much worse. The emperor tries to correct to somehow improve the situation, but it seems that everything has only become worse. Matias pushes him away, asking him to go away if he does not know how to behave normally. In fact, the guys are very similar to each other. In one case, it is better to sit down. The brunette is approached, asking if he has finished all his important business. Now he can focus on preparing for the ice business, thus having made his entire plan. He even already started about a few days ago. According to the agreement, the project will be implemented on behalf of Peak Hearn. The goal is the goal, so the task is to occupy the market in each region. This will be more than enough. The technical problems that Valerie solved with her ability cannot be hidden, so a separate statement must be published, explaining everything. The emperor does not understand what is being discussed. He raises an eyebrow, asking his brother again and clarifying the details. They found a way to solve the problem, but it is completely secret, so there is no need to reveal its essence. Matias all this time carefully braided his hair, making his hairstyle more beautiful. Now it seems almost perfect. It looks pretty cute. The brunette hands over the documents. There is information about the equipment, about logistics, and then the budget plan is also described, which is an important part. They will start with this. The study cannot be skipped, otherwise problems will arise later. After half an hour of peaceful work, the little girl finally makes a sound, looking at her brothers. She understands that they have neither fear nor disgust for the power of ice. Osvalio jokingly asks if the blonde wants them to be afraid. Of course, she does not think that it would be easier. Then, if I had to clarify, maybe they are pretending to be scared and will do it only for the sake of their sister. The king agrees with this. There was a moment when he was scared, only because the girl has abilities. Freezing is not a simple thing, you need to be careful with it. Matias asks, again not understanding whether this was true or whether it was more of a game. Perhaps it is worth saying this now. Erlans also has power. The girl jumps, not understanding what is happening. She did not know something like that, thinking that he is an ordinary boy, no different. The man gently stroked the girl's head, asking her to calm down. In fact, it was just a funny joke. Sometimes he is so insightful that it is even scary at first. The king thought it was just a coincidence, but it turned out that it was not. It's a kind of foresight so rare that it occurs once in a million. The power belongs to the god of light. Roshan, the heroine, remembers important information. She wants to know more to understand what's what and why. The main god of the Bell Empire is him. The character symbolizes light and the sun, and also has the power of prophecy and foresight. The heroine could only dream of such a thing. In fact, it is true. According to the high priest, Erlans's power comes from a fragment of Roshan's power. Although the power does not always manifest itself and does not depend on his will, this ability has provided great help, sometimes even helping to save people's lives. In fact, not only the youth can foresee, but it is still too early to talk about it. The blonde thought, now she understands what it is, and how the beauty noticed that Erlans is quite well versed in all the details that are not on the surface. Most likely, it was not an illusion. Sometimes it seemed that he could see right through the girl. Then that time he was in the corridor, not by chance, and was able to understand that the heroine was in the closet. The being that the heroine was offended to death generously bestowed his love on someone else. It was unfair if this person, Belov Jr., the child who was called Light, was truly loved by God Almighty. He would only have victories in the future. The girl decides not to think anymore, but to act. She asks how many other members of the Imperial family are aware of the power. It turns out that everyone knows, except for Rogian Belov, Maximilian, and Kayev, and about 5 more people, including the high priest, who is also not informed. The heroine doesn't quite understand how to react to the late king, his late son, and the one who is still alive. They don't have a particularly strong connection with the current ruling family. The others don't understand either. I'd like to clarify about Bruno or the former Duke Osvalio. Now the girl is one of those people who also know. She smiles happily, asking if this means that she also has the right to tell Erlans about the freeze. The man frowns. In fact, it is difficult for him to say this, but some difficulties will arise. He already said that it would be safer if only a few people knew about the power. The less widespread, the less risk. It would be better to postpone this news for the boy. For a while, nothing would happen to him, so in any case, it was not scary. Having apologized, the little girl admitted that she had said something stupid. She should have kept quiet when going outside. Matias starts a conversation. He needs to say something. Of course, the king asked to hold the end, but soon the girl will go to classes with Bell Jr. The child seemed very surprised. She had already gotten used to Ader's palace, so it was time to start learning. The little girl blinked her eyes in surprise. She didn't think she would hear something like that so soon. In fact, the woman was always very jealous. He was also quite perceptive, because he knew all this. The brunette noticed such behavior only recently. The beauty was simply extremely careful with how she behaved, so no one knew. Valerie needs to learn not to be jealous. If she gives all of herself only to this, then nothing will change accordingly. Besides everything, there are now people next to her who will help fulfill her wishes. Of course, not all, but at least to the maximum. What Matias said earlier was not empty words. The blue-eyed girl nods. She knows that the man is right. She also wants to go to classes, just like Erlan's. She is pleased that she was understood and not scolded for the feelings she was experiencing. The emperor's brother ran back into the office. He either forgot something or again wanted to talk about something related to business. The young man guessed wrong. The conversation will be about Valerie. It is necessary not only to teach her, but to hire a teacher. The blonde does not understand why such an impulse. Osvaldo wanted to console the girl a little, so he said that very soon she would be attending classes with her nephew. The man did not even discuss this in his opinion. It was a little early to think about something like that, because the girl had not yet fully adapted. She still had an injury. Valerie hasn't even had enough of playing and running around yet, and she is already being forced to study. Of course, no one will like this. His son began studying from childhood. Apparently, he himself asked for this, believing that it would be easier to govern the country in the future. It turned out that Belov herself wanted to go to the teacher. The emperor, having listened, immediately nods. In this case, he changed his mind in a second. In 26 years, the brunette sees him like this for the first time, like a feather. He asks if there is already a teacher in mind. In fact, the duke thought about it. For example, a good option is Viscount Quimper and Marquise Rouville. These two would be the best. The first, of course, would be better for someone like Valerie, who knows nothing, because the second is a rather hot-tempered old man. The man agreed. He immediately wrote a letter, packed it, sent it. Some time passed after this conversation. The ice business developed day by day, and as Matias had planned, word began to spread. People gradually learned something new because of the advertising. While walking, Erlans, for some reason, asked Valerie if she had started puberty, trying to hold back his laughter. The brunette asks who taught him such words. It seems it was in some book attempts to take a bath alone, lock the door, and not go out. All this is considered one of the signs. The little girl remembers her recent behavior, which seemed to be getting worse each time the beauty was hiding, realizing that she needed to develop her skills since the business was gradually growing. But of course, the boy does not know these details. Osvaldo, standing behind, laughs. Apparently, that's true. They're talking about puberty, noticing the beauty's strange look. He quickly falls silent, asking for forgiveness. In fact, it was a simple, harmless joke. Smiling, the man tells the boy that Valerie just needs a little more time to adjust to the new environment. Something else will be needed. The blonde nods, deciding that this is true. The duke suspects something is wrong. The youth is usually not fooled by such words. He is always vigilant. It seems like everyone has already arrived. There is a commotion because they seem to be late. Today is a special day. Valerie will be attending a family dinner for the first time. She didn't suspect that it would be problematic, but she doesn't mind at all. Entering the room, the hero asks for forgiveness, that everything did not turn out exactly as he wanted. Sitting down, he says that they had some business. The empress points to the chair next to her, suggesting that she sit next to him. The blonde sees Her Majesty for the first time since the day she arrived at the Fernand Palace. Layla examines her son, asking what is on his head. It is the duke's doing. Since everyone is gathered, they can finally start eating, which the servant brings in. There were a lot of different dishes on the table, which made the girl salivate. The woman held out a small plate with a piece of elk, which is actually tender meat, just right for children of that age. Taking a bite from a fork, the heroine lights up with joy. It is incredibly delicious, which is impossible to even describe in words. Mother became caring, but for some reason, only in relation to the new member of the family. Oswald could not help but notice this. When the boys were little, it was impossible to even imagine such a thing, because it is not according to the rules of etiquette. The man grew up, the woman said that she gave birth to him with 2 arms, so he can do everything necessary on his own. Thinking about it, now he does not know how to react to this. The woman rudely asks how an adult duke can envy a child. She did not teach him such a thing. Although, as it turned out, it was just some kind of mood. The emperor knew that his brother dreams of his mother taking care of him. They do not give up their place to little Valerie, although she has more chances. The blonde jokingly takes care of the young man himself, putting some meat on the plate. He gently strokes his interlocutor's head, asking him to chew better. Everyone around starts laughing. Of course, jokes are good, but it is worth understanding when to stop. The heroine decides to change the subject so that everyone would be at least a little more comfortable. She heard the news that Valerie is looking for a teacher. Viscount Kemper agreed to take the little girl under his wing. Now he is thinking about a training plan that will suit a small child. According to the empress, the girl started too early, although she has already got used to it, but she still wants to believe that she will cope, and everything will be fine. Valerie should know that in these small hands, there are many opportunities that she will be able to use in the future. Of course, she doesn't know everything yet, but this will allow her to be whoever she wants. No matter what the blue-eyed girl does, she doesn't need to listen to anyone. It's better to follow her heart. It's also better not to rush. The beauty has time. She won't have to wait long in any case. After dinner, the queen suggested going together and playing in the castle. Of course, the boys agreed. The blonde constantly played, the words said in her head. She felt good in her soul from the way they treated her. After all this, Osvalio asked to take the little girl back to Atra. On the way there, he asked how she thought the first family dinner went. It was incredibly fun. Of course, it was a pity that it all ended, but that doesn't mean anything next time. It will only be better. On the day, the girl moved to Atra Castle, and today she really enjoyed the atmosphere when everyone gets together and has fun. It's nice to know that good families still exist, and that everything that makes them up is pure happiness. There is nothing to regret. There will be many more evenings like this in the future, because everyone probably likes everything to happen according to their command. When the beauty finds out that Adder is not waiting in the palace, she will only be glad that they finished early. She does not understand what kind of surprise it is, but obediently follows forward. There was something to look forward to. Her eyes lit up in an instant, because it became clear what was being discussed. The girl didn't think that this evening could become even more wonderful. Her feelings poured out. Still unable to believe, the blue-eyed woman asks again. She needs some guarantees. The man said that the order was complicated and urgent, so the craftsmen tried their best, deciding that it would be right. They quickly head to the room to see everything. The girl is surprised when they hand her a box in a completely normal condition, which makes her soul happier. The heroine starts playing a melody. The thing was so badly broken, but the broken parts and glass were replaced, and now it has become better again. She thinks that she is lucky with the life she has. After some time, the beauty arrived in her brother's room. It seems she came to attend a lesson. The teacher is so active that the little girl studied hard. Usually, Viscount Kemper is not so good. But looking at the child, he gets motivated. The brunette himself is very busy, but he came specifically to see the beauty. He asks not to say so. Although in fact he left the house for the first time in 3 days. The reason for being so busy is Erlens. The boy said that he wanted to walk with the girl along the streets, so the hero somehow tries to occupy his time. In fact, he is fine and believes that he has long been accustomed to the way things are. Asking if the blue-eyed girl would go with them, the man receives active nods of the head. She, being in her right mind, would never refuse such a thing. Tomorrow, she and the young man have no classes, so the Duke will come for them early in the morning. Before agreeing to this, the little girl again clarifies about the man's condition. He looks tired. It turned out that he is normal. As soon as he manages to get a good night's sleep, he will wake up fresh, as if nothing had happened today. It is better to concentrate on work. No one can come in today. We need to make about 20 from ice. Virgo carefully produces cubes, which carefully fall into the open bag. She is praised for the work done. It seems that she has become even more skilled in this matter. And this is also good. The heroine only smiles in response. She is incredibly pleased. Surely the talk of puberty had an effect in this way. The Duke could not miss the opportunity to make a good joke. She increased the strength, so the cold of the small ice stones will last even longer. This will be better for everyone, business for sure. The next morning has arrived. Erlands meets the beauty, noticing that she looks great in any clothes she tries on. It's just amazing how true it is when the baby looks like that. There is a feeling that she is really going outside. The heart beats wildly. She noticed a sword in the Duke's hands. It didn't happen by her will. Of course, she had to ask what was what, in fact. Everything wasn't as perfect as she would have liked. The man took the weapon just in case he doesn't know what could happen on the city streets. In any case, it is not worth relying on him too much. He is only aware of the basics. Father said that uncle is better at martial arts than fencing, so in any case, he will be able to protect them. The blue-eyed girl did not know about this information. It's amazing that a man with glasses can fight well, although such a physique cannot be achieved without proper training. So in general, it all makes sense. The previous emperor usurped 3, which annoyed many rich people, so he must have many political enemies. A man should know how to protect himself. This is something for which one must try. Probably the childhood of his 2 sons was also not entirely calm. This is the constant stress that does not lead to anything good. Finally, the carriage arrived at the place where they were originally going. The beauty is helped to get out. This is the shopping street, Larson district, where there are actually too many people running from side to side, as if they have nothing else to do. There are always quite a lot of tourists here. Before going forward, the young man gives a short briefing on how to behave. They shouldn't run away anywhere alone. If they get lost, it's better to stand still and wait. If a stranger asks to go together, they should immediately refuse, because no adult will ask such children for help. After his words, the Duke asked to repeat everything in full, so that he could remember it better. After about half an hour, the children were too tired. They felt that this was the end and relaxedly exhaled. Now they were allowed to go forward. They could look around and maybe even buy something tasty. There are many different stalls around, where there are fruits, and even various fish and sweets. The little girl saw many things for the first time, and is now delighted compared to the palace. The atmosphere on the streets is completely different. It makes you watch what is happening with breathtaking breath. There's something smelling really good up ahead. The man doesn't even know what it is. He's not really interested in street food, if they want to try it. The guys can use the money the Duke gave them for personal expenses. The kids immediately ran to the counter and asked to give them one of each of what was there. One on a stick costs 25 darlings, so they asked the kids for 50. 10 minutes later, they have corn dogs in their hands. They look even better than from afar, and this creates a feeling of joy inside. A girl with long white hair adorned with a red ribbon freezes, covering her mouth with her hand, amazed by the taste of the delicacy she is trying. Her big blue eyes wide open, expressing surprise and delight. Next to her stands a boy, his gaze as if asking how something can be so delicious from this. All the delicacies that she has ever managed to try are forgotten. The guys didn't stop there. They ran to other stalls where there were other options to try. For example, shashlik or colorful donuts. The money quickly ran out. It's nice that they like everything, but the Duke thinks it's time to stop. After the dinner was over, it was decided to look at the various gifts in the distance. The blonde noticed something interesting. There was a signature, "Give your unchanging heart to a precious person." The man asks to choose if the child likes everything. The money ran out, so he will buy everything he needs. It is not such a big problem. The blue-eyed girl asked to take the bracelet. The second one is of course intended for Erlance, who also needs it. The third beauty hands it to her brother at the counter. They said that there were only a few left, so the opportunity could not be missed while they were here. They needed to go to one more place and then go home. The brunette goes forward along the road. The beauty involuntarily looks at the mountain in the distance. There you can see MacLeod, the highest mountain in the entire Bell Empire, which can be seen from everywhere. So strong was the cold in the very center of the country, instilling terrible fear in the inhabitants. There are various legends about that place that make you think about it even worse. The girl looks around. People around her are smiling or laughing. They are happy to be together. But if one of them finds out about the abilities behind the reflections, no one will be able to look at the princess with the same smile. She will most likely be sincerely hated. Three people enter the shop, the seller asks, because he does not immediately notice that Osvalio himself is in front. Phil asks what brought His Highness to him after so long, his face distorted into a grimace. The man hopes that they did not bring him as much work as last time. Usually the brunette is very cruel today. He was just walking nearby, so he dropped in to see how things were going. There was nothing to worry about. The owner was slowly finishing everything. But before that, he asked who this friend had come with. He had never seen children before. The blonde is the nephew, and the other girl is the younger sister. Phil bows in greeting. It is a great honor for him to meet the princess. And Prince he introduces himself as the one who runs the entire Larson shopping district on Mount Hearn. There are still some things to check. The brunette asks His Highness to come over for a minute and read some important documents. The man asks to sit quietly until he returns. You can't go outside so as not to get into some kind of trouble. Of course, leaving the children alone is not the best idea. The young man understands this perfectly well. But he has no choice as long as the two are inside the estate. There is nothing to worry about. He wants to think that they will not disobey. Valerie looks out the window. She noticed something there and began to worry. Jumping up abruptly from her chair, the little girl asks to call her brother. He said not to go out, but it is impossible to ignore what is happening. Some tramp grabbed the little child by the hand and drags her against her will, forcing her to cry. The girl hurries forward. She does not immediately understand where they went, so she turns the corner. The young lady is met by guards. They remind her that she should never walk alone because it is not entirely safe running up to Rex. The princess asks him to go with her because she needs help. All the explanations will follow later, right after they figure it all out. The lady is immediately picked up in her arms, and they rush forward along the street. The man throws the baby aside on the floor, screaming and asking why she has no money. He won't believe it, because reality seems strange. Crawling back, the brunette repeats the same thing again. All the remains were taken from her 2 days ago. Not a penny was left. The child cannot get money in such a short time. In her case, it is unrealistic. It is time to talk. Is it true? The drunkard swings the bottle that he picked up after himself. It seems that something terrible is about to happen. The girl closes her eyes. A man appeared from behind the night, grabs his hand, asking not to make hasty movements, after which the stage of regret will come, which will overshadow everything else the child should not watch. Either they can deal with all the problems themselves. The brunette orders them to let him go. He doesn't understand why they are doing this to him, because he doesn't seem to see any problem with it. A few minutes after the start of the resistance, the stranger ends up on the floor. A sword is held to his face so that he can't move. The man screams, asking again not to meddle in none of their business. He wanted to throw the bottle right at the princess, but Rex managed to jump forward at the last moment, grabbing the neck. It seems without thinking, the man crossed the line of what was permitted. Now it will be bad? They should have tied up the drunkard earlier, but the knights still managed to do it while they were sorting it out. A girl in a torn dress approaches. Valerie asks if she asked for help from a stranger. A normal question, but her tone and facial expressions hint at hostility on her part. Perhaps Belov thought that they would be grateful to her. But the beauty doesn't care about this kind of help. Looking at how an aristocrat who went out for a walk helps someone in trouble is already unpleasant, and even more offensive when it is done out of stupid pity. Then, not on the blue-eyed one, but on that girl and her mother, the whole stream of anger will fall, so it is better to take away pity and go your own way. Her Majesty is still trying to explain herself. She helped not out of pity, but out of sympathy. The child doesn't need anything from the one who drags 3 guards around and calls herself a mistress. She even changed her clothes to look at ordinary people. This can be considered absurd for such aristocrats. The lives of the poor are entertainment that amuses. The blonde instantly became sad. The interlocutor was right, but she knew how painful it was. When the body was under physical attack from another person, she was well aware of the pain, so she came running as soon as she noticed the squabble. Blue-eyed quietly asks if the girl knows Valerie Belov. In fact, it is she, exposing her hand with numerous scars. She says that once it was so painful, even wanted to die, thanks to the help of people the baby can live happily among them, is the family and even the knights of the empire. This is not considered a simple good deed from an ignorant aristocrat, because she only wants to share what she has in abundance, a drop of kindness and care. She is happy that she was able to save the stranger from that drunkard. Smiling, Valerie suggests going to the castle together. First, they need to get permission from the adults, but it won't be difficult. A scream is heard in the distance. Osvaldo runs towards them, holding Erlans in his arms, who told them everything. The man first asks what happened, and if the beauty was hurt. She can't even imagine how worried he was when he heard that she had run away, even though the baby wasn't hurt. She was probably crying because something not very good had happened. The girl apologizes, while His Majesty turns to the knights to find out what happened. They want to tell him the whole story, but only one glance to the side is enough to understand what happened. A tied man lies on the floor, and a small child is nearby. The girl standing behind is called Rusha. The heroine is going to tell her story to at least clarify the situation a little. It turns out that that drunkard is her father. In fact, this is amazing. He had never had any work in his life. Fortunately, the beauty's mother had a shop that she had inherited from the treasure, so they could live there. Everything was calm until one day they noticed that the money began to disappear, so they managed to find out some things. The man became addicted to gambling, and then without telling his family, he borrowed money and mortgaged both their house and even the shop. Unfortunately, that's not all. The house was taken away, and despite the fact that there was no money at all, the father got drunk every day, forcing them and their mother to work to bring in income. Friends and neighbors tried to help her break up with such a terrible person, but this made her even angrier. The girl looks at Her Majesty and apologizes for insulting her, without even thinking she really has no forgiveness for what she did. The blonde doesn't want to be apologized to. She has a slightly different goal that she won't put off since they've already started. They need to help until the end, so it would be nice, tell me, baby, what needs to be done to make the situation better. The girl asks to help her mother divorce the tyrant. This is not even discussed. Such a chance does not come often, so you need to tell what else is needed, so that everything possible can be done. The guys can help. They are from the royal family and will do what they can. It seemed like it was all some kind of dream. The conversation turned to the National Academy. You can't get in there without a letter of recommendation. It's good that the beauty started studying. Since she expressed a desire, the hero has no right to refuse. Their family will take care of the paperwork for divorce, and of course will accept the heroine. It will be better for everyone. Finally, it will be possible to find peace. The baby is incredibly happy that life will now change for the better. She still can't believe it. Osvaldo is so cool and also good-natured now. Life will get a little better. Valerie, standing behind, jokes a little, but she shouldn't think that everything will go as smoothly as she wants. The heroine had to go back to the castle and memorize 101 rules of child safety, so that next time she thinks twice before climbing somewhere. Meanwhile, work in Laudun was progressing quickly, thanks to Matias. Rusha's father was sent to prison, and he and her mother arranged their life so that the girl could have a chance to enter the academy. Thus life went on as usual, throwing up new happy moments. Layla stands next to the baby, showing her how she should behave. She asks to raise her chin and look only forward. The sudden changes in the life of the mother and daughter attracted the attention of the villagers. They only knew that the family received help from the aristocrats, but from whom exactly is unknown. Layla claps her hands. The beauty is doing great. It must be hard for her to study hard in class. The task is not easy, but even here, Valerie surpasses herself, giving it her all that's enough for today. Better go have some tea. Cups and various delicacies were laid out on the table, in addition to classes with the teacher. The little girl is now taking etiquette classes under the guidance of the empress. Intense school days make her doubt her goal, but she goes to the end. Smiling easily, the beauty says that after classes, the desserts are even tastier than usual. The most important thing is that they are fully deserved. The heroine laughs easily in response, answering something she always treats the girl like her own daughter, and it's sweet. While biting off a piece of the delicacy, the woman suddenly bends over, starting to cough. The lady assures that she is fine, but as soon as she gets up from the chair, she falls, losing consciousness. Perhaps something is wrong with the dishes served, or she is pregnant, which is even worse. The girl heard that Layla was pregnant. It was in a past life. She was told that the child died in the womb, without receiving a name. Everything happened because of Aisha. Time goes by, and peaceful days also pass, gradually giving way to a black streak. The very next morning, the empress was informed that she would become a mother again. Erlans, who was hanging around nearby, did not believe that he would have a brother or sister. This was joyful news that made everyone gathered smile. The king's mother comes closer to the bed. They haven't had a granddaughter for 8 years. Perhaps the best way to celebrate is to have a party that people will want to come to. Of course, it would be great if the whole country could enjoy it. But there are some nuances. At first, the woman would like to visit the temple to thank Roshan for the miracle he sent. And to pray for the well-being of the child, the emperor suggests setting a date in advance so that they know exactly when they will be able to do this. Valerie also congratulates the lady, who, smiling even wider, accepts the words answering. That the whole family congratulates her. She can't wait to see how beautiful their baby will be born. There's nothing to worry about. Aisha is gone. No one will poison Layla, but there's still anxiety in her head. After some time, I was lucky enough to arrive at the temple where the carriage was met by Shale Braig. Namely, the Holy Father. He was happy to see such long-awaited guests in front of him. Bowing their heads, the troop of priests greet the humble servants of the God of Light. The Holy Father turns his gaze to the girl standing behind Millard. He continues to smile, but now it seems as if something is wrong. The Emperor doesn't notice anything. He just says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. 3 months have passed. Time flies so quickly that sometimes it becomes scary. The man asks if everything is okay and how the journey went thanks to the priests. The journey was safe. The two speak formally, but they seem to be friends and comfortable with each other. Perhaps it's because of Erlands anyway. Shell asks to follow him. They head inside the church. Inside is the main prayer room, where a stone statue of Roshan is installed. To begin with, all those who arrive must bow down and clean their lips and hands with holy water. Listening to the words, all four quickly do what is needed. Now it's time to pray. Kneeling, the family closes their eyes and begins to read prayers. The girl does not perceive what is happening because of her past, which again was not entirely rosy. She doesn't think that her prayers will be answered today, but at least this time she hopes, until the last, that the child will be born safely. The Emperor's family deserves happiness. They are good people who constantly do good to others. After that, heading to the bright hall, the brunette asks some questions. He wants to know how the Bells would like to dispose of their donation. Millard wants to discuss something and asks to give him a minute. This is directly related to what is happening. The couple will enter Shiel's office, but the children are not allowed in because a private conversation should not be overheard. The man, smiling, suggests a walk around the church grounds. The children must be bored listening to adults' speeches, even if they understand most of it. Now is the moment when the flowers, the symbol of the temple, have blossomed. The kids will probably like it very much. The blonde looks with golden eyes that suddenly flared up and immediately agrees that they can follow to another place instead of getting in the way. Before releasing them to another location, the commander orders Rex and River to take charge, turning back one last time. The baby slightly cringes. She has a strange feeling Shale was looking at her so closely, as if he managed to notice something. The little girl is scared. She wouldn't want the Holy Father to know about her real power going out into the corridor. The knights begin to talk about something every day. Rex did nothing but watch people lying in the dust on the training ground, and now he is increasingly being assigned to accompany the king's children. This is truly a reason for joy, considering that the weather outside is great. River would also like to have a cute little brother like His Highness, and the man would like to have a sister who can practice fencing. That would be truly happiness. Erlands goes further, looking around, as if he is looking for something, but does not say what. You have to ask again to finally get an answer, turning around. The little girl freezes. She did not have time to realize that it seems danger is close. This makes her feel even more uneasy. Sir rushes forward. He grabs the girl in time and falls to the ground, trying to make sure that she does not hurt herself. Rex hears that something incomprehensible wanted to attack the princess, but it seems that they were too late. This is a good sign. The prince better stay nearby, so as not to get caught too. River steps back, frozen in horror. In front of her is a huge tiger. The animal should not be here in the open. The blue-eyed one quietly asks who it is. The size really makes her scared. It turned out that the monster is actually a harmless sacred creature, blessed by the god of light, Roshan. His name is Innocent. It is strange that a divine beast, which is almost impossible to even meet, suddenly appears before Her Majesty. The brunette puts his sword forward, ordering them to stay behind him just to be calmer. The blue-eyed girl tries to understand what to do next. This is because of her strength. Probably he perceives the princess as an enemy who arrived on foreign territory and now forces him to defend himself. A guy's voice is heard from behind. He thinks that everything is fine. Innocenti will not attack. Erlands has long understood that the animal is very happy to see the guests who have arrived, but he is upset because it seems that the guys have blocked his path, not allowing him to go forward. The boy says sharply that you can't jump, the baby almost hurt Valerie, so now you have to think about your behavior. The face instantly becomes disappointed. The prince asks the girl if everything is okay with her. It seems that it is. Thanks to Rex, everything ended well. He blushed a little because of the heroine's words. It is enough for him that the princess is safe compared to what Sir Bruno usually does. This is nothing, he is a real savior for all times. Erlance agreed. Rinoman loves to train, but the hero standing next to him also distinguished himself and should not lower himself for him. This is the best praise in the service, he wants to continue smiling. Innocent appeared behind again, his head resting against the back of Her Majesty. The baby does not obey at all. His actions only frighten Belov Jr. Asks his friend if she felt something strange. The Holy Father sent them here specifically to meet the tiger. There is no need to worry, everything will end, more than well. The man's intuition tells him this Erlans and this animal. Both received the blessing of Roshan. They must feel happy, although they themselves do not know how lucky they are. The girl with glowing eyes says that the animal is cute. She is not at all embarrassed that the tail is thicker than a human wrist and that the tail is like a rattlesnake. Although it should behave quietly, the girl saw many animals when she was on a mountain full of snow, but she never met such a thing. The tiger makes you feel real warmth. The baby cuddles and turns over on its back. Erlans heard that this creature is not so friendly. It is strange that the girl managed to tame it. Maybe it should be given to good hands. The girl did not like this reasoning. Before them was a holy animal, and not some stray cat to whom one could speak like that. If it was not true, he could be taken with them, but at the moment he has a home, a temple. A familiar voice was suddenly heard. The priest asks, "What is going on here?" Shale apologizes for what happened. Innocent has not been outside for a long time. Bruno wants to understand more, asking to tell if you look at Her Highness. She seems so tiny compared to this animal. The man says again that he wants to apologize once is not enough. They will be careful in the future, and this will not happen again. He asks for forgiveness for what happened. If the day comes when the beauty needs their help, he will definitely do everything that is required. The girl nods. She will definitely remember this. There is no point in refusing a good idea. The Holy Father himself suggested it to her, and this could be useful in case the power is suddenly revealed in her head. The heroine has already built a chain of what she is going to do. Innocenti came closer and licked the heroine's hand. She assumes that he also wants to apologize. The priests standing there open their mouths in horror. This is definitely that capricious beast who has simply changed noticeably. Thought that there is no problem in this. He does not even allow the others to touch him with a finger. Valerie seems to be the best at communicating with the divine spirit she is instructed to convey, that it is time to return to the castle. The baby immediately felt that he was being abandoned and became sad again. In this case, the lady has one option, removing the bow from her hair. She ties the thing to her paw. The baby will keep the gift until the next meeting. But for now, it is time to say goodbye. Until the last second, the priests discussed the fact that Innocent had never been as obedient as he was. Then it seems that his perception of the world had completely changed. The next morning came completely unnoticed. The beauty stretches, she feels warmth nearby, and wool. At first the feelings were washed away, but then true surprise was reflected on her face. Opening her eyes, the girl had the honor of seeing Innocenti in front of her, who turned into someone very small, in size more like a cat. The beauty didn't believe it. She didn't know that the animal could become small. Stepping back, the tiger was huge again. His hands reached out, and the lady hugged him. He was scolded yesterday for attacking the guests, in such a form they simply had too big a difference in weight. Unfortunately, it was unfair. The girl is happy that she was visited, but if she stays near her, there will be a big commotion, so no one will benefit from this. She tries to start a conversation so that the animal goes away, but it is too late. A maid came into the room and screamed, asking what such a large animal forgot there. Nella asked not to say anything, and while the two watched in surprise, she crept across the floor and, taking the baby, ran away. The emperor was told everything because the staff of the Atra castle heard screams coming from the beauty's room. The man asks to explain the situation again. Not that he didn't understand, but he hasn't heard anything stranger than this for a long time. The blue-eyed girl wants to say that when she woke up, a divine beast was sitting in her arms. He definitely snuck in to see her, because in her opinion, too much time had passed since their last meeting. One gift in the form of a bow was enough for the tiger to return. He even took his things with him. The little animal is not going to return so easily. He goes to his basket located in the corner and carefully holds out something glowing. Something that he got with his teeth. An emerald as payment, so that His Majesty would turn a blind eye to what had happened recently. It seems that the temple has not yet noticed Innocent's absence, but he must definitely return, so we will have to send him back, so that everything does not get completely bad. The man asks Valerie to leave. She objects at first, but understands that the young man needs to talk to the tied tiger. The kid probably knows that. Despite the fact that the interlocutor is the most important in the empire, he has no right to decide the fate of a divine being. This is something from the category of wrong. Even if Belov had more power and influence, the fact that the beast considered the princess so special that he decided to leave the monastery would not benefit anyone. In this case, the girl would receive a huge amount of attention compared to what she had before. This might help her. Her status will increase, but considering that her abilities are her main weapon, this will do more harm than good. Besides the blonde is the next contender for the throne of the empire. After Erlens and Matias, this should be thought about twice. If the name was associated with innocent, then aristocrats with ulterior motives would cling to her for support they did not receive from the state. Like the older brother, Millard is grateful that the child was to the saint's liking, but does not want to make things worse. The explanations seemed clear. They should return to the temple as soon as possible. A minute later, the emperor called the butler to him. He asked to make sure that no one would say anything. While they quietly returned the animal back to the temple, they handed over a small basket into his hands, where a tiger cub the size of a ruby hid. Time passed. Innocent appeared in the office again, looking at him skeptically. The king asks him to keep a little conscience, and at least not jump on the table. 2 weeks have already passed. The baby continues to resist. But this time, he brought with him a letter with a noticeable seal of a sacred place. Shale himself sent a message saying that the animal does not stubbornly resist without a reason. So please allow him to stay in the castle. I'm all for it. The man could not have expected such a thing. He did not think that someone so high-ranking would give his consent. And even in writing, the young man had his own condition, of which, by the way, there were two. The first was that no one except the royal family and close associates should know that the beast was with the princess in the temple. He also avoids people, so it won't be difficult. The second was also important. The kid extended his hand, showing that the negotiations were over. Of course, the animal accepted the conditions and thinks that now it will do whatever it wants. Kyle is asked to call Valerie, and by the time she comes, time will pass. Millard thinks about what happened. Of course, the sister is smart and sweet, but it is not like they stuck to her like an annoying fly. The creaking of the door distracts her from her thoughts. The beauty arrived quickly enough. She asks what happened, but does not have time to finish her sentence. Because Innocent jumps into her arms, the emperor told her that from now on, the animal will also live in the Imperial palace. He was very persistent in order to get what he had planned. If something is wrong, the blonde will pretend that nothing happened and send the baby back. The maiden, on the contrary, is very happy. She could not even think that the sacred beast would like it so much. One could only dream of spending time together. But nothing more taking him in her arms, she smiles now. Time together will be more fun than alone. Now, it can be understood that there is nothing wrong with this strange behavior, And this affection, Millard reproaches himself for not seeing this earlier. Such a beautiful child could not help but be liked by a divine being. There must be a reason why she has ice abilities, as if she is terrible. Returning to reality, the man again reminds about how to behave. You can't catch anyone's eye, otherwise it will be bad. Innocenti nodded. It's still good that the beauty now has a reliable guard. It will only get better if he is nearby. You need to look for the positive in everything. It had been exactly a month since the news first came out that there was ice on the top of Erna. People's reactions were generally negative. They thought they would get it again. They only had to worry more, and it was tiring. This was due to the fact that the ice business is notorious for the fact that everyone who tried to get into it went bankrupt one after another. Despite the doubts of the residents, Matias managed to become #1 in the market in just 1 month, thanks to stability and low prices. No one knows that behind him is a new princess. Such a beautiful lady with powers and efforts were also made to equalize the prices of ice. As we know, this varies depending on the weather and conditions given, that the changes in the ice market led to the emergence of black traders. The Duke used his position and the summit of Ern to harshly suppress the activity. The man himself is incredibly tired. He feels like a vegetable. Millard exhales. It must be hard for his brother in such a state, but nothing can be done about it. The divine being is still nowhere to be seen. The guy heard rumors about him and would like to take a look. He must be just dozing somewhere and doesn't really like to be in crowded places. The assumption is correct. The little animal is trying to obey orders. The blonde was worried in vain. There are never any problems, so it is considered that everything is fine. There is still the question of how the girl will cope with the animal. But considering his special attitude towards her, there is no need to think about this either. The emperor noticed that the two, on the contrary, were getting along well, that he was ready to bring her any basket of jewelry or pure gold. The brunette chuckled. At first he didn't think about it, but the animal was getting it all from somewhere. Either it was from the temple or from the personal belongings of the Holy Father. That wouldn't be the best news. Millard checked everything in advance. He couldn't let anything go wrong, so he contacted the Holy Father in advance. He said that all these accessories to the divine beast, as Erlanz said, the butler must be rich to live a peaceful life. It is still hard to believe that now they have the very creature that is so revered in the temple. Usually such animals are not interested in human wealth, and even more so do not collect it. In fact, this is true in general. He should be indifferent to all this, but in their lifetime they are too human. It looks funny how he tries to show himself to be like people. Since the children like it, it is impossible to refuse something like this. They like spending time together, and this is actually the most important thing. Not long ago, they gave him a nickname they chose for a long time because the prince and princess could not agree on one option because they liked different things, as is usually the case with children. The name Innocent symbolizes himself, that is a divine being, so he did not like it when the brunette heard Kitty. He even choked on his tea, spitting it out, and starting to laugh until he dropped Matias cannot restrain himself. Because as usual, he behaved too emotionally, his nature does not change. It was necessary to think of something ingenious to call a 20-year-old tiger a kitten, which is the size of several big guys by animal standards. He is still a child, so everything is fine. Children play in the garden with Layla. They wove a special wreath for her, which they put on the top of her head. It matches her white hair. The girl asks the lady who she would like more, a boy or a girl. She chuckles a little, not even knowing what to answer. Before she would have said 100% that she has a son. So it would be nice to have a daughter, but now she doesn't care who it will be. Because for her, Valerie has become her own child whom she wants to take care of. The baby lights up with a bright red light. She is a little unusual that she's addressed so sweetly, for her Layla is like a mother. So this time she agrees. Erlanz, sitting next to her, smiles. He is happy to be present at this sweet moment. The two sitting in the gazebo continue to watch what is happening from afar. Matias asks to pick up Valerie a little later, and he will pick up the prince now. Millard frowns. His brother says that he must pick up ice cubes for transportation. He changed his mind and decided to talk a little with his nephew today. The Duke asks the boy if he has collected everything. He nods, showing that he has. The only thing is that it seems that Osvalio should be tired. He acts as if he does not see the problem. He is not able to do anything in the eyes of others, but in fact, he can do much more. Finally, it's time to get to the main point. The man wants to ask a question. He doesn't know if the boy feels unhappy or upset, because he has to share what belonged only to him since birth. The young man looks out the window. He has already heard something like this, because he was once asked about it. When Bello Jr. first moved to the castle, some maid asked, what if Valerie made him less loved than he always was? And would the baby be okay if that suddenly happened? Listening to this, the hero looks with a bit of anger. No one should ask such a thing, especially a child. In fact, the young man does not see any problem. It is not strange that both Matias and his father love the girl. And this does not mean that he is given less attention. The young man never thought that sharing what belongs only to him, because parents have the right to treat others just as well. The family never divided love between themselves and Erlans and Valerie. And even the unborn baby receive a certain amount, which coincides. Osvalio has nothing to worry about if he still doubts something. The brunette exhales. He agrees there was no reason to ask ridiculous questions. The hero got to know his nephew better, lifting the boy in his arms. The man laughs, saying that the kid really distinguished himself, and for this he is praised. The blonde seriously says that he is the son of his father and mother, but Matias does not accept this. Although the child belongs to his brother, he will always remain important for the Duke. The blue-eyed woman stood behind the door all this time, listening to the conversation. Erlans wants to thank. He can't imagine how much strength and confidence love will bring. The little girl is still scared and unsure. But thanks to how bright the young man is, she can move forward even from the shadow that envelops her body from head to toe. I would like the child who will be born very soon to also receive lots and lots of love, sitting in the room opposite Lila. The beauty falls asleep. It is already the next morning, and of course, she could not miss the moment of being next to her named mother. The empress noticed that recently, the girl began to doze off often, when she herself did not want to. It seems that she is overloaded as an option. The lesson for that day could be cancelled. The child suddenly jumps up, assuring that she is fine. It is just that today she suddenly felt ill, apologizing for letting her see a false picture. The beauty gets up from her seat. It's time to go to class. Layla watches her go. She worries about her children. Perhaps the change of seasons is to blame, so both are behaving a little differently compared to before. Turning to the maid, the girl asks to prepare a medicinal decoction for the children. Ina also needs to bring paper and a pen to write a letter to Matias. The girl nods. Now she will bring everything so that she does not have to go herself. It's already summer. It seems that time flies even faster this year. This is because many special events have happened. The heroine laughs. It's true. In fact, time does not stop. The girl remembers what happened. Mrs. Layla lost consciousness because of the poison. Hannah said that the poison was completely neutralized, but unfortunately, the child in the womb did not survive. The end came. It was not possible to save due to the impact. For some reason, the mother's voice is heard. She whispers something in her ear about the beauty being a real monster. Such a monster cannot think that it deserves happiness. Her eyes open, the woman jumps up from her seat. She is in bed. It was all a dream. Today, I couldn't get a good night's sleep again. The fact that Aisha died doesn't mean that it's all over. The girl's accomplice, who helped her poison the empress, is still in the Bell family estate. The problem is that the main character knows absolutely nothing about him. Although in that case, she would have to stay on the snowy mountain, she does not understand how to act further. It seems that she has reached a dead end. Some kind of dead end. She felt uneasy inside, and her head was in total disarray, making her want to cry. She decided to go for a walk to clear her head a bit. Stopping in the garden, the beauty realized that she was not alone there. There was someone else. A hooded man stands in the distance. A symbol is drawn on his back that makes you scared half to death and fall on the grass. The maiden has already seen this robe before her return. She does not know what to do. In fact, she was hungry when the girl went down. The corridor saw a strange man standing next to the blonde. Then the man promised that he would work on something next and left saying goodbye. This is definitely happening again. The time is the same as in that life. The stranger showed up at the estate in the same clothes, and his behavior is very suspicious. There can be no doubt he is Aisha Belov's remaining accomplice. The virgin still doesn't understand how to behave. She is so far away that she can't really make out the face. If you look at the skirt, it might seem like it's one of the servants now. The figure has gone somewhere further. It won't be possible to find out more. It is clear that if that identity is not revealed, something bad could happen. But while Mrs. Layla remains in danger, there is an option to at least try to protect her doing it as calmly as possible. The little girl turns to Kitty. She wants him to fulfill one of her requests. He can be near the empress until the sun rises. There are still a few hours left. Blue-Eyed is ready to beg only an animal can protect the mistress so that no one knows about it. The baby understands that they will help her and immediately thanks. She will never forget this. The girl sent the beast to the queen's chambers, and she herself made her way forward between the bushes. She looks around, realizing that there is another accomplice. This time the face is closer. There is a chance to see a... It turned out that under the cloak, there was a small child who seemed to have noticed the surveillance. The blonde doesn't know what to do. Inokenti is no longer around. She would like to know what the little boy with scarlet hair forgot. Here she has never seen anything like him before. The girl tries to put two and two together, and stepping forward quietly, says that it is Maximilian. He appeared out of nowhere, and it seems that he does not care that it is night outside. The emperor's family tree is quite confusing, despite the fact that Kalos already had a wife, Karina, and two adult sons in the last years of his life. He took two more after his death. He left behind 4 descendants, including Valerie and her child with Rosian. The little girl hasn't heard from him for a long time. The woman's family rarely goes out in public, so they haven't seen each other. The girl decides to ask what brought him to the castle at such a late hour. Unfortunately, he is unable to tell. Considering that the heroine is here in pajamas, not to mention house slippers, it's even worse. The members of the Imperial family should behave accordingly. They shouldn't waste time figuring out who and why among themselves. A stream of anger flares up in her head. It's terrible to look at people with such hatred. The woman justifies herself by saying that she went out to get some air and ended up in the garden. The same thing happened to Maximilian. The boy turned around and walked away without answering the question. Asking if that would be all he would eventually say, he was of course lying. It would take about 40 minutes to walk to Morgan Palace. This child is hiding something. Maybe Rosalind is also involved. It would be a shame to drag them to the bottom when the girl is actually getting closer to the truth. A lie would calm her soul. In fact, she wants to be at peace. Now, it is only important to protect Layla. There is a high probability that the criminal will use poison again, a person who can get close to add poison, or someone from the kitchen, or one of the maids. In the corridor, the beauty met Ina and Coco. The maiden knows little about them, but it is known that the first has served the queen for a long time. Over time, the Marquise of Esbon, and probably the most devoted, there is also Pasha. The girls return to the fact that it would be nice for Her Majesty to return back. Perhaps Atera Castle is not the best place, but if everyone there is not doing their job, Coco promises that she will report to the king to fix it. In fact, the blue-eyed one dreamed of her mother. The dream was so terrible that as soon as she woke up, she immediately went here because she wanted to see Layla. Do not forget that the princess is still a stupid child. Ina noticed that the lady must have been scared. Then they should go to Her Majesty as soon as possible. Coco would take care of the medicine and help them get into the room. A great idea. That's exactly what they would do. At the request of the queen, the duke sent a variety of medicines. It seems they are going to use poison again if you are not vigilant. Even your brother may get poisoned, and this cannot be allowed under any circumstances. Valerie enters the mistress's room. She blinks her eyes in surprise. Not understanding why the beauty came so early, she had a nightmare. The dream was terrible, so she thought that she would like to be with a loved one. The blonde understands, so getting up from her seat, she smiles and hugs the child. Everything is fine. There is nothing to worry about. It's just a dream, and it will never become reality. I want to believe because this is the only hope left in reality. As the girl said, the dream will not come true. You don't need to think about it so much. There is no point in any case. It became a little easier. But still, the heroine wants to sleep with the queen, does not want to be alone. The girl nods. She turns to Pasha, asking him to report everything to the Otter Palace, and also to bring a change of clothes and other things. Coco is given another order to go to the kitchen and ask to prepare breakfast for Valerie too. Her Majesty asked for a medicinal decoction to drink after the meal. The little girl said that she felt as if her temperature had risen. The woman thought that it would get better if she drank the medicine, so Matias sent everything she needed. The medicines that the maids were carrying were intended specifically for the beauty, she saw it, and could not believe it. The blue-eyed one does not understand where the poison would be then, and what one should think about it at all. Layla asks. Not to worry, there is a part for Erlans in the box too. The boy feels well, but this was simply done for health prevention purposes. All people need something like this, at least sometimes. The child doesn't know yet, but her nephew has a special power. Because of it, he can't be strong. They say that Layla's body was not ready to bear a fetus, so as a result, the baby was born very weak. The girl had really never heard of anything like this. When he survived the first winter, he gradually began to recover. And now there are no problems. Apparently, this happened because of certain problems, and the beauty did not know since the baby was born a little earlier. Layla is still worried all parents behave exactly like that, and she treats Valerie the same way. Even if the brew is bitter, the girl should be patient and drink at least a little. She made a promise to fulfill this. When Pasha comes, they will take turns drinking tea and then herbs. Today the maiden will be able to be near the mistress all day. This is a reason for joy. There is no opportunity to search the kitchen. You need to be as close as possible to the heroine herself. There was a knock on the door. The maids had already arrived. Ina had managed to tell everything in the kitchen, so they all went together. The girl always makes her task easier. The princess arrived very early, so it seemed that she would not have breakfast. When the maiden first arrived at the castle, she needed to be taught so many things. Coco and Pasha are proud when she does what needs to be done herself, without any instructions. The woman blinks her eyes in surprise. She has been working here for over 10 years. The lady is glad that everything is fine with them. Nothing special happened. The woman thought for a long time whether to speak or not. But it is still probably better to find out, not understanding what it is about. The beauty asks. Again to clarify. It seems that Pasha has been having some troubles lately. She never shows when something is wrong. But now she sighs more and more. Often her facial expression is not very good. That's immediately noticeable. Her friends asked, but she didn't say anything at all. The excitement remained. Of course the maid should be given special attention. It will probably help her, so it's for the best. It seems she went out yesterday. There was no outerwear on the hanger after 11 o'clock at night. There was a knock on the door. The maids came in again, but this time with trays. Finally everything was finished. They could start eating. The girl nods and picks up a fork. But her head still wasn't clear. It was hard for her to think. There is clearly something wrong with Pasha. It is obvious almost immediately. A person who has decided to commit murder cannot be so worried. This raises even more questions. We need to find out the truth by any means necessary. Ina stares at Her Majesty. An unkind glint flashes in her eyes, which makes her feel a little uneasy. It seems she wanted to check something, but it is unclear what exactly. Layla calmly continues to eat lunch and reaches for a glass of water. The beauty suddenly realized that she had just discovered a way to poison the empress. They had already eaten, so they would soon bring a decoction with poison inside. It would not be possible to inform His Majesty. There was no time at all. The maid with the tray smiles, leaving the cups on the table. The contents were too hot, so she poured it into a glass to make it easier to drink. She didn't want the princess to accidentally burn herself. The queen nods, but does not understand why there are 2 glasses, since she asked for a portion for Valerie. An explanation follows. The person who gave the herbs ordered it this way. The Duke sent the herbs that are safe for the unborn child, so it will be even better. The woman thoughtfully asked to prepare a decoction, even for the empress. Now more than ever she needs to devote time to her health. It is kind of Ina to do just that. After all, she is trying to prove her devotion again. The beauty froze. Now everything became clear. She was wrong to think about Pasha, when in reality the real criminal was another person. Of course, it is difficult to believe she has served longer than anyone else. She is always nearby. The woman asks for her and Matias to drink at least a little, thus making everyone else happy. This is the brunette's work, but it does not even compare to the mercy that is shown to her every day, constantly making her feel happy. Her Majesty has already tried it once, so it should be all right. First, you need to hit the cup a little with iron utensils, and after stirring, take a sip. The little girl does as told, but in the end, she deliberately turns the mug over. The blue-eyed girl is surprised and quickly apologizes. The maid tries to hide her anger, but thinks that there is nothing to worry about. It didn't get on her clothes. And that's the most important thing. The little girl looks a little guilty. Okay, you can change your clothes, the brunette asks to call Pasha, so that she can help. The decoction will be prepared one more time, so that you can drink it. However, it will take quite a bit of time, at least 10 minutes. The blonde realized that she needed to take advantage of the moment and urgently inform His Majesty. She had gained a little time, but the knights might not have time to arrive before the maid did something terrible. Opening the window, the woman exclaims in surprise. She sees Kitty in front of her, who has come down from the tree. It's good that he is safe. He will be the one to convey the news. The girl takes the baby off the windowsill. She has one urgent matter. She needs him to deliver Millard's letter. It will be ready in a few minutes. First, she needs to write it. She has a pen, but no paper. She will have to use a napkin. The beauty asks to deliver the message as soon as possible. It is clear that she is incredibly nervous. It has not gone away. Pasha comes into the room. She was ordered to change the princess's clothes, so she brought dresses with her. Once it's all over, the child is about to leave, but she is stopped. The maid doesn't know how to formulate what she wants to say, and it's so obvious that she knew there was something in the potion, and now for some reason, she's revealing all her cards. The woman would never have done such a terrible thing to Her Majesty. She is innocent, but she wanted to tell her that the poison is in the cup of tea. She is sorry that it all turned out this way. She would like it never to come to this. The blonde nods. She understood that there was absolutely no time now, so they needed to talk later. When the beauty returned, she would still have to tell in detail, thanks to Pasha. The girl was sure of what had happened. Layla looks quite calm, as she doesn't suspect anything. Squeezing the hem of her dress, the beauty thinks about how she should behave next. Maybe it's better for her to tell now and ask for help. But this is also risky. Belov certainly doesn't want to present the information like this. The truth will eventually be revealed, but there is hope that it won't be a big blow to the lady who cares so much about Ina, who has been by her side for many years now. The woman came back. She chose the right moment, this time. The decoction is not so hot. You can drink it in your hands, are silver sticks. You can start drinking after a few manipulations. The girl looks pleased with herself. Belov quietly asks for a little more time. She behaves like this because she is afraid to drink. Layla smiles slightly. Of course she will not lie, that the medicine tastes good. But the maid carefully prepared sweets, so everything will be fine. The empress takes the cup. She doesn't mind drinking it first. The child rushes forward. She can't wait any longer, although she hoped that Inokenti would make it in time. Valerie puts a silver watch into the cup. It's noticeable that the effect has appeared. Ina is nervous. She asks Her Majesty what is bothering her. Perhaps nightmares make her behave this way. The child orders her to give her the handkerchief that she had previously used for mugs of infusion. At first the maid refused, but she had no choice. The blue-eyed girl knew that checking whether there was poison or not was pointless. There was no point in rushing so much. The brunette definitely wanted to do something. All that was left was to find out what exactly, so that there would be evidence. Something happened to the place where the cups touched the lips. The beauty wipes the watch with a napkin, noticing how the side begins to darken. Horror is reflected on the face because the maid showed her true face in front of her mistress. Aina grabs Valerie by the hand and throws her to the floor, screaming how she found out about her machinations. The woman is sorry that everything has gone so far. She wanted the situation to end calmly, with poisoned tea without blood and screams. The heroine wants to back away, but she is literally attacked. A knife appeared in the opponent's hand. Belov, lying in the distance, is terrified. It is too late to try to stop her, but the guards are still nowhere to be found. They probably did not have time to run to the castle. The child can only use his power, thereby exposing himself and his abilities. I really don't want to do this, but it seems there is no choice. In an instant, everything changed. The door swung open, an order with swords in their hands appeared on the threshold which surrounded the criminal. Ina screams, swears at the mistress, and everything that is happening while she is grabbed and dragged away as far as possible. The emperor himself also runs into the room. He is unable to believe that someone has attempted to assassinate her, hugging his family. The man is glad that everything ended well. Layla might not like it, but it's better to stay in the palace. Fernand will first have the doctor examine the girl and then prescribe some medication to calm her nerves. The lady doesn't even resist. Valerie remembers that she would like to tell her something else. It's something important to her. The blonde easily hugs the beauty. She also has a lot of questions. But since what was done recently was only for protection, the baby will not be blamed thanks to her courage. Today it was possible to avoid a big disaster. And for this, it is worth being happy. The little girl should have understood that this was recklessness. The said mother's heart almost stopped from the worries that were hidden inside. Now the most important thing is that the situation will not repeat itself. And what happened ended on a favorable note. Now it's Valerie's turn to scold. The man says he was surprised to receive the letter. He wants to hear the story from beginning to end, to understand how the sister found out who was to blame. How she found out there was poison in the cup, and why she had to act alone, risking herself. The girl found a way to get out of it lately. She has been falling asleep wherever she can. The family is worried about her. In fact, it was just an excuse. The baby wasn't even sick. She had a secret that she didn't want to reveal. The main character could not tell that every night she had nightmares in which the lady lost consciousness because of the poison. For this very reason, Belov went for a walk. She was bored and she decided to choose this option. It is considered that this is the easiest way to check the mother. This is not something that is easy to tell someone you know. And the girl thought that her feelings were just a coincidence. Then what happened was what she wrote in the letter. She came alone without saying anything, hoping for pure luck. The blame lies on the girl's shoulders. In fact, she wanted to come as soon as some clue about the culprit was found. At first, she thought it was just a nightmare, because there was nothing unusual, but then suspicion fell on Ina. Since then, things have become noticeable, but it was not possible to act quickly, because the girl was always nearby. The baby begins to cry, asking for forgiveness for what happened. If she had told in advance, she would not have exposed the lady to such terrible danger. Everything is fine. There is no need to blame yourself. Everyone remembers what Layla said, that something really bad could have happened, but thanks to the protection, everything will be fine, and there will be no need to worry anymore. Now her soul is calmer, for which she is grateful. Unfortunately, the little girl would not want to hear such words. She was simply defending her beloved family. No one does this just to get some unnecessary praise. Millard was wrong. He admits it. It was hard for Blue Eyes to do this alone tomorrow. She would have to tell all the details, but for now, it was better to rest. At this time, River arrived to provide evidence collected in the kitchen. It seems that poison was discovered as the beauty thought everything was in the dining room. The child should not hear what will happen next. Bruno is asked to take Valerie to her chambers, standing behind the door and almost crying. She asks how one can do this. The hero specifies the name of the poison. Petunia. It does not act immediately after consumption. The symptoms appear only after a period that lasts about 2 to 3 days, so it would become noticeable much later than stated. The man involuntarily recalls how his sister said that in her dreams, the empress immediately lost consciousness after drinking tea. But it was unrealistic. As you can see, the poison has neither color nor smell. There are no symptoms either. It is difficult to detect. If Her Majesty had consumed the concoction, neither she nor anyone else would have even known about the poisoning until permanent symptoms appeared. The woman would have died faster than people could help her. There was no evidence left to know what exactly the poison was, only the name and a few familiar differences. Hannah unfortunately can't do anything about it, even if she really wants to help. Everything is more serious than the Emperor thought. The poison is colorless and odorless, which means that it can be not only in food, but also in any other place in the palace. It is necessary to immediately block the entrance to the castle and evacuate all members of the royal couple. A maid couldn't have gotten something so terrible on her own, that's quite clear. The culprit is targeting not only Layla, but the whole family in that case. Everyone might get into trouble. Death is of no use. Right after Valerie returned to her, Fernanda came running to her. She heard what happened. The child must have been in shock. The maid suggests changing clothes and resting a little. Some care wouldn't hurt. Pasha also came to the castle. She asked for forgiveness for doing it so abruptly. but she needs to offer a sincere apology after standing in silence for a minute. The beauty falls to her knees, burying her forehead in the floor, starting to whisper something. The subordinate feels very sorry. She could never have imagined that Ina would threaten the mistress. It is a mortal sin. What the lady did cannot be forgiven for anything. It is shameless to say so, but her youngest are not guilty of anything. They need protection. The blonde asks to calm down. She had no intention of interrogating or doing anything worse. In return, the heroine wants to know more details that the brunette will tell her. It seems she doesn't mind, although the words are difficult because of the lump of tears. Pasha was just an observer. She only watched how the girl played her game. If she hadn't succeeded, she would have had to do it instead of her. The woman didn't want this either, but her father left her no choice. She was unable to contradict him. Anna doesn't know about the girl, and doesn't even seem to suspect who reported it. She'll probably get very angry and do something when it becomes known the girl asks if Rozhan Belov is behind all this. Her Majesty should not get involved in the showdown. The beauty will not tell anything, because she believes that it will not have any effect in front of her, is still a helpless child, who accordingly is not completely trusted. The lady understands that no matter what happens, she will protect her brothers and sisters, and in return, she must tell His Highness everything and be punished for her sins before him and Layla, apologizing. Morning came. Millard ordered the field to be closed and the royal family to be evacuated. Erlens, his mother, and Karina immediately went to the family's remote mansion, after which an investigation began among the castle staff. The man wanted to send his sister with everyone else, but since she is an important witness, she will have to stay late. She also has something to tell. They immediately get down to business to find out how the little girl identified the culprit. Yesterday, the maiden had already mentioned this. Ina was checking the girl's hands in the dining room to make sure she was right-handed. It was just a grain. As soon as the family entered the dining room, the maid prepared a decoction in a cup with a handle. Seeing this, the lady understood what she was going to do. Taking advantage of the habits of the lady, the woman always held the pen with her left hand, although she usually writes differently. There was no poison in the decoction itself. She watched how Layla took the cup and what part of her mouth she put it to. So she did it in such a way as to choose the most convenient part for herself and what she would have to do. Later poison was discovered. The lady did not check, but she is sure that the same thing happened with the other cups. There will be no poison on one side. Bruno orders to check everything to make sure. The girl used the silver watch instead of the skewers because she thought that Ina could have replaced them with fake ones, and she needed time for the knights to get there. But as it turned out, the items were real after all. What Her Majesty said is also true, only on one side. There is a solution applied to poison the woman. Millard is surprised. He knew that Valerie was smart, but he did not think that she was so smart. The blonde says that the poison was found in a box of medicines, that Matias sent it. Seems that the criminal not only wanted to frame the Duke, but also use Valerie to divert suspicion. Assuming that Layla took poison and the child knew nothing, there were many suspects, because they would not know when exactly she was sent. She would be the first suspect who gave the queen the cup, but she would be immediately acquitted. The beauty was a witness. She would have claimed that she did not add poison, and Belov could have confirmed this. Ina had thought it all up in advance and given the tea to the little girl to try. Perhaps she didn't know until the very end that there was a deadly pill inside. This was a real assassination attempt on the entire royal family. But neither the criminal nor the one behind it would escape punishment. The girl added what Pasha told her. The king really appreciates what his sister told him, but he is still worried that she is so deeply involved in all this. It is not good. If what was just told is true, it means that whoever is behind this is controlling the people in the area. We should find the person he is probably hiding. If things have gone this far, then it is very likely that they have all gathered together. First, we need to find an approach to Layla's border. Bruno promises that he will bring the girl. She will probably not mind helping in the investigation. Everything is more serious than it was before. But the king did not suspect that now they have no choice but to get to the truth at all costs. It will be more difficult than expected. They must be extremely careful. The blue-eyed woman is a little horrified, but still asks what is going on, because it is important for her to understand what is going on. The man still hasn't recovered from yesterday. He always worries about his wife the most. The criminal admitted that there was a certain customer. All this was not just like that. She said that she was helped by none other than Aisha. It seems unreal, but the girl was nasty all her life, so it's normal. Since the girl is now dead, she would not have been able to exert direct influence on this incident. It is possible that she simply ordered something to be done, and then handed over control to someone else. Ina couldn't have gotten the poison herself. If you think about it, the poison is different from what was there last time, which means that someone else got it too. Maximilian comes to mind. The maid's room was searched, as was the entire Rono palace. Evidence of this deal was found there. Now it remains to be seen whether Belov is connected with Belua and other people who acted behind the scenes. Until something is resolved, the most important thing is to remain cautious. First of all, the man is inclined to the option that the incident was organized by the late empress. Why did the Hebron family take on the task? They will be punished. Blue Eyes quietly asks what it means if her mother acted alone, or if the evidence was fabricated to hide the true customer. It is clear what exactly the girl is worried about, but it is not so important. The Heberns are bankrupt aristocrats living off their meager fortunes, and after Aisha entered the royal family, they frivolously squandered all their money on useless things. After the girl's death, their connection with the castle was broken, and they began to engage in illegal activities all this time. The hero turned a blind eye to all the misdeeds, but they themselves are to blame. At some point, justice had to prevail. The relatives on the mother's side must be severely punished as soon as the truth is revealed. There is a high probability that this may affect the princess too. Tomorrow, if everything is okay, the baby is sent to the estate. Ina was sentenced to death, and the Heberns were stripped of their aristocratic status. Their property would be confiscated for their assistance in the crime, and the case was supposedly closed, but no one was guaranteed safety. The newspapers began to publish hot articles about what was happening. Valerie was not deprived of attention either. What was happening incredibly angered His Majesty, but alas, he could not fight back from what was written. He thought so public opinion of the Bells was not good at all, especially among the aristocrats. He should have sent the child to the rest of the family immediately. Now she would see how everything turned out and would probably be upset. Fernanda packs her mistress's bag. It was the heroine who saved Her Majesty's life. But it is strange why she is forced to flee the castle, as if the pursuers were behind the door. The maid is against the situation ending exactly like this. The blonde herself is not against it. Her loved ones are in that place, so everything should be fine. Since it turned out that way, she needs to have a good rest before setting off on the road. It will be a long one, and this is also not the best. Perhaps the blue-eyed one does not know it, but the area of Esborn where the estate is located is famous for its stunning scenery. It will be a wonderful place to relax after all this fuss around the royal castle. And Rael and Valerie and Layla, all three had special feelings for Ina. The girl does not imagine that Fernanda was a traitor, and the lady probably experienced shock when she realized that her loved one decided to sin. Sir Bruno came running into the room he had been looking for Her Majesty all this time. He looks like he is worried and asks about how things were last night. In fact, everything is fine. It is really true. The heroine says that yesterday, immediately after meeting him, she returned to the room and was there the whole time. It is not entirely clear what exactly happened. There are probably even more questions than there should be. The brunette is glad that nothing happened. Pasha Belua disappeared after talking with the princess. She was immediately arrested as a suspect today. There was supposed to be an interrogation, but when the knights entered the cell in the morning, there was no trace of the girl's presence there. Now the squad is scouring the area, but the beauty is nowhere to be found. The last person she saw before her arrest was Valerie, so Rinoman urgently went to her to make sure everything was okay. His Majesty summoned Baron Belloise about this, because perhaps the girl's family helped her escape from the cell. The little girl is silent. She remembers what the heroine told her. The disappearance probably happened against her will. This is already becoming clear. The knight made sure that Bellof was okay, so it was best to leave before saying again that they needed to go to the estate right now. Rex and River would be accompanying them. The blue-eyed one thanked Sir Bruno. Whether what Pasha feared happened, or whether she was taken against her will, this remains to be seen. It is already quite late. The carriage has just arrived at the place. One wants to know what the family is doing. Greeting Kyle, the girl asks where everyone else is. It's a pity that I have to say it so simply. But it's important. Mrs. Layla had a miscarriage. The child is no more. The little girl freezes in horror. A bead of sweat runs down her face, showing that it's all over. This is the end. The butler is sorry that this happened. His Majesty will arrive soon too. The child can't stand it. She falls to her knees, quietly repeating the same thing. She feels incredibly sorry for the lady she deserved, better than all this. But in the end, she got nothing. The girl wants to scream, but she has no strength left. Arriving in the room where the empress is, the girl sadly lowers her eyes. Layla lies unconscious on the bed. Karina takes the kids to her. It is better for them not to be nearby, so that no problems arise. They will come later. Hannah bows her head, apologizing sincerely. She did everything she could, eased the pain in her stomach, and stopped the bleeding. Fact, she is very sorry that everything ended this way. Just a few days ago, the doctor said that everything would be fine with the mother and son. The incident was sudden. The brunette may assume that there is a psychological factor here, despite the time frame. Although in fact, there are many recorded cases when a miscarriage occurs without any omens or reasons. The only thing the beauty is sure of is that the poison has nothing to do with this, because it has not yet had time to penetrate the body. Fate is cruel. Sometimes there are turns in life on which a person's future depends. Already in the evening, the king ran into the room. He falls on the bed next to him, and grabbing his wife by the hand, begins to cry. He wants everything to be fine. Valerie, standing next to him, sadly watches this. She is still lost in thought. Too much has happened in a short period of time. Of course, it's not the same child as last time, but still the baby wanted to protect him. A dead person can go back to the past, but for some reason, there is no chance to bring the baby back, either. It's just not what the god of light wants. The blonde doesn't know what to do next, no matter how hard she tries. It's worth remembering that the body is in God's hands. Matias speaks up, asking about the health of the empress. This is an important factor. There are no other problems except for a significant decrease in energy, says Hannah. The doctors did everything possible, so if you take good care of her, she will quickly return to normal. The little girl takes her nephew by the hand and leads him outside with her. They stopped at the gazebo. Now they can breathe easy. The clean air makes them feel alive. The blonde starts talking. She thinks she could protect the unborn child, if only she was a little more careful in her actions. His Majesty and his wife said that there was nothing to worry about, but the maiden still reproached herself. There was no if only. No one could give an answer. Even the father could not prevent what happened. People are not able to move mountains. Erlens hopes that the girl will stop tormenting herself with thoughts and asking such questions. She did everything in her power. That is probably enough. The boy is right. Belov quietly thanks her for the way they treated her and supported her. The girl will definitely protect the boy, no matter what she has to do. She will do what she must. She offers to choose a name for the baby. They say that those who do not have one are quickly forgotten, so you need to name him so that he will remember for a long time. The idea is great. The blonde suggests the name Astal. He would become a star, so that people would look at him, and I want to hope that this is exactly how it will be. It is incredibly beautiful. The sky now reminds us of the unborn member of the king's family. He heard footsteps behind him. Of course it was his uncle. He wondered where the children had gone, but apparently they had chosen a place to cry quietly. The young man almost walked past, because he couldn't think that these two were in front of him. He couldn't be so mistaken. Wiping her face with a handkerchief so that the tears would not be visible, Matias says that it is time to go back. The woman cannot see them like this. Obviously, she finally woke up as soon as she opened her eyes. She immediately became worried about where the children were. The man came for them for a reason. The kids want to run faster into the room to see Layla, but he grabbed them under the armpits. In fact, the kids run too fast after they wash up. They need to go. They can't wait any longer. This is too much. The queen opens her eyes. She looks forward. In front of her are the blurry outlines of Innocent. The animal is caressing, but in his eyes there is a spark of sadness that makes her feel awkward. The woman looks. She understood what it was, not difficult. It is obvious that the one who is tied to the door knew everything from the very beginning. He knew that Layla would lose the child the girl asks to protect. At least Erlan's or Valerie. They deserve to be, while Kitty comes even closer and nods, confirming that she promises. Some time passed. The two were sitting in the garden. It was so hot outside that it was almost impossible to breathe. It seemed that summer had truly come into its own. The blonde waved her hand, exhaling. She would like some cold water. The first thing she suggests to her nephew is to think only about the good, because it is already time to start preparing for the boy's birthday. He admits that this is what upsets him so much. His mother only recently came to her senses. It is still hard for her, because she has no energy left at all. Blondie said that this year you can skip such an event. The blue-eyed girl giggles. The more the handsome man talks about it, the more you want to arrange a celebration, even if he is against it. This does not mean that something will change. Other people will make the decision. The girl finds out how the prince feels if everything is okay with him. There is no point in delaying. The servants in the estate are worried about the upcoming holiday. This will help raise everyone's spirits after what happened recently. The heroine is glad that Layla looks so happy for the first time in a long time. They waited for some time, but now they had to move on. The empress would be perfectly fine. The blonde sadly lowered his head. His friend was so right that it seemed as if the young man was a complete fool for resisting. In any case, anything can happen. No need to be sad. In fact, the girl is a little worried, because this will be the first birthday banquet that Valerie will hold with her family since she left the Ronin palace. If you think about it, that's right. The boy accidentally forgot about it. Now she wants to cry even more. Jumping up from his seat, the young man grabs the girl by the hand and drags her along with him. Perhaps they have had enough of this chatter. They need to quickly tell their mother and figure out how to make the banquet even more beautiful, just for the bells. Erlanz doesn't know this, but he looks very much like the queen. They are as if one and the same. The day when the sun shines the brightest all year is the prince's birthday. When they were preparing for this event, the summer in the estate was fresher than ever. The breeze helped to rest a little from the heat. The lady went to the temple for the first time in a long time to pray. The lady donated unused baby clothes and money that they had put aside for the baby. Although only His Highness and his brother know about it, the profit from the ice business was decided to be donated in the name of Astel. Many people will remember the unborn baby in this way. His Majesty was still busy finishing the case of the dispatch and tracking down the culprits in the tangled labyrinth of the case. So the days passed slowly, everyone doing their own thing, and not disturbing each other, because it was necessary to have time to finish everything. The girl interrogates Rex lately. She has noticed something strange. Something is happening that is impossible to understand, and it began only after arriving from the Imperial Palace. Perhaps it is connected with poisoning. Valerie knew that something probably happened, but now she does not know how to react to it. Either the criminal has finally been discovered, or it is connected with Ine. It is better for a 9-year-old child not to know, so the young man brushes it off, although they still do not leave him alone. Of course, in the end, it is unlikely that he will be able to leave without giving answers. However, the lady is already involved in this matter because she was a witness, and the savior of the situation she must know. Soon after the baby arrived at the estate, the criminal was executed. In this case, the heroine is informed, but there was something else. After that, her family younger brothers and sisters were expelled recently. A squad tracked them down and found that they were all dead. They were found in a remote alley where there is poor security since it is a border town. They say they got involved with the wrong people. It is still unclear who is behind this, so Rex did not want to spread the word. The blue-eyed girl is a little sad, but still decides to move on to another topic. She is interested in what happened to Beloit. They are still being watched. After Pasha went missing, there were many different incidents. It seems they are prowling everywhere. Under this pretext, the Baron continues to postpone the invitation of His Majesty. According to the maid, her father is also somehow involved in the conspiracy against the family. It is impossible to be sure how truthful the maiden was. She was a puppet. Her Highness wanted to say something else, but then a voice was heard. It seems that everything is ready for the banquet. We can move out to check the details. Running out into the street, the blonde gasps. Layla asks if Valerie is okay, how everything looks. This is her first banquet in this estate, and it doesn't matter. because the place is unique and beautiful, unlike the royal palace. I would like to learn to do what the queen does on a daily basis, and especially on holidays. The lady has excellent taste. It is considered ideal. The beauty hopes that one day she will become exactly the same, and she is supported in this. His Majesty has returned. He greets everyone gathered. The family has not seen him for a long time. They would like to know how he is doing. Of course, he should have been next to them. The man has noticeably lost weight. There are many problems in the palace, but it is good that Belaf is safe now. The main character of this celebration walks forward. He is wearing a beautiful robe that matches his shoes. Erlands looks great today. Everyone starts congratulating him on his birthday. He has managed to grow a lot. His parents didn't even notice how it happened. The baby is glad that Valerie is with them this year. As he shows up, it's time to start the celebrations. The servants come out into the street as soon as Karina gives the signal. Glasses filled with champagne are raised into the air. Juice is poured into the children's glasses. The family once again congratulates the 9th birthday in chorus. It's time to cut the cake. It's so wonderful that you don't want to eat it. Originally, there was a parade planned, and many aristocrats were supposed to come to the main banquet to introduce Valerie to everyone. If the righteous man was in the royal castle, she would have the opportunity to meet her nephew's friends. The boy has 2 friends. Their names are Ivan and Endymion. It would be great to meet them and chat. Layla, standing behind him, smiles. It's a good idea they can be invited as soon as everything is resolved, and the family returns back. Belov will definitely be liked by the guys. It's true, you have to believe it. She is a sweet and beautiful girl. There is no one who would want to refuse her. When the 10-year anniversary comes, the family will throw the most grand celebration so that everyone can see Valerie. It's good to do it the way she wants, because this is the first thing they are going to impress with. In fact, it's hard to say anything. The mind is overwhelmed by shock. If Erlands has any ideas, he will definitely tell. At that moment, the lady thought that she would like to protect these beautiful smiles, filled with joy and happiness. Nothing is allowed yet. She needs to try harder, so that Layla and the prince never again get into an absurd situation with a threat to life. If Valerie doesn't want it, there won't be a performance. She has the right to choose. In fact, the beauty likes everything. She can't wait for tomorrow and next week and her birthday. The day of the meeting with Ivan and Endymion has arrived. The main character is trying on shoes. Her nephew is hanging around today. Is the first time she will meet children for this. She needs a special outfit to seem even nicer than she really is. When the children were all gathered standing in front of the mirror, they gasped in surprise. Their clothes were somewhat similar. The ribbons on the dress and suit were given to them by their mother, and she specially chose them so that they were blue. The parents entered the room. Layla giggles. It suits the kids very well. She has long wanted to give something like this. Something similar, and now she is completely delighted. Valerie shouts that she likes it. She thanks again and again. The joy inside is mixed with anticipation. New friends. This is all great. The emperor cools the beauty's ardor a little. She is happy, that's understandable, but she should be careful with Endymion. He is Bruno's nephew. That's all you can say, the man himself. As soon as he heard this news, immediately soared in spirit. This suits him. The brunette has been talking for so long about wanting them to meet. Millard is skeptical. It is Valerie's wish. Only because of this, Rinoman is already starting to talk about the wedding, because he is too happy, angrily answering the blonde snorts and leaves. Erlance is sent out with the girl, asking him to introduce them to each other correctly, doing as needed. Very soon, they will return and tell how the day went. Here, the guys are already in front of the Nilam Palace. It's calm and beautiful here. Valerie didn't know that there was such a place on the Imperial territory. It looks more like a small estate than something grandiose. They all started attending classes for the heirs last winter, so they hadn't seen each other for a long time. But they didn't always meet early near this place, where you can just play alone and not worry about anything. The boys will be in the largest room on the 2nd floor. Grandma made repairs, especially for them. Realizing that they need somewhere to play, the blue-eyed girl nods. She perfectly masks her true feelings, although in fact she worries about when she has to meet someone. Entering the beauty again, thinks that everything will be fine, and they will like her. She wants to hope for the best. 2 people are already waiting in the room who bow their heads respectfully, greeting the prince and princess, as befits all the rules of etiquette. Endymion Renomen, only 9 years old, is the heir to the Marquis, and the nephew of Commander Bruno Yvonne. Eldrick is a little older, 10 years old, the daughter of the Emperor's advisor Ludmila, and the heir to the Marquis. They are both well known in wide circles, and many would like to befriend them. The baby comes out of her trance, nodding her head. She is incredibly pleased to meet you. She often heard about Endymion from the knight. The man raised him from infancy and replaced his parents, who died in an accident, made him his heir, and raised him as his own son. They even look a little similar in appearance and smile. They will probably get along. The girl cannot forget about the family of the Marquis of Eldritch. The princess met with Lyudmila several times in His Majesty's office. The girl is also an exact copy of her, took all her features from her mother, and even her reserved character from her. The eyes examine the heroine and express displeasure. The voice becomes icy when the girl greets the interlocutor again, but this time in person, the wariness comes to the surface. Hostility is immediately obvious. The blonde hopes that they will become friends. But now she does not know how the situation will end. Eldritch seems unhappy with her. The day is over. It was a lot of fun, so Renomen suggests getting together again and playing even tomorrow. Yvonne doesn't listen, heading straight ahead down the corridor. The young man has to run after her to try to talk. They haven't seen each other for so long, but the girl is behaving terribly. She has never been like this. Today, the beauty saw Her Highness. For the first time, she needed to be a little friendlier. Eldritch chuckles. She herself does not know why she behaves like this. She probably just has a bad feeling, forcing her to constantly worry about how their affairs will go in the future. Some time passed. The blue-eyed girl wanted to get into her older brother's office, but accidentally overheard them discussing what to do with Baron Balua. It seems that some problems arose inside the room, is Lyudmila, who is showing something on sheets of paper. Entering the door, the blonde greets the woman, noting that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The brunette was just about to leave, so it's okay. Without even saying goodbye, she closes the door behind her, hurrying to go somewhere far away, as if she was not pleased. The princess recently noticed that this man behaves exactly the same as her daughter. They both try to stay away from the young lady and do not want to make contact. Perhaps Yvonne adopted this from her mother, who told her something she cannot have her own reasons at 10 years old. His Highness distracts the little girl from her thoughts, asking why she came. It's probably all tied to the ice figures. Matias said that he would be a little late, which means that while there is time, the beauty will do more. A few minutes later, the beauty asks what they talked about Baron Bellois. Of course, it is understandable that the lady is worried about that maid, but it is absolutely not necessary to know all the details. While the heroine was in the estate, the man who declined invitations was finally forced to arrive at the castle. But several questions arose. At first glance, it was clear that the man was not in his best condition. It seemed that the words about him going crazy because of his daughter were true. When he came to the office, he fell to his knees asking for forgiveness for having come only now, after so many ignored invitations. The brunette was sobbing, telling how all this time he had been trying to find his daughter. There were no traces of her left. Perhaps the girl had the key to the truth. It would probably never be possible to find out, because the aristocrat had not spread enough to make it clear. One way or another, there was no clear evidence that Pasha was missing, and he asked for help after the meeting. The man was released. But now the Baron will be under surveillance, so that if anything happens, the Imperial Palace will stop the activity. The girl nods. She is glad that she was told everything. Millard calms his sister down. The squad continues to find out the location of the maid, so there is no need to worry so much. Valerie decides that it is better to start making ice cubes. Everything stopped abruptly after the words of the question. The beauty probably wants to ask something else. Getting up from the table, the man lifts the vase up, pours the water onto the floor. This is exactly what he wants to do, and this is what is needed. Sometimes the beauty thinks that Millard has the same abilities as Erlance. Insight is a difficult thing. In fact, it is better to promise that the girl will not do anything else. It is time for her to learn to take responsibility, and not just throw words around left and right. They met a couple more times, but it began to seem like there was a wall between them that couldn't be overcome. She understands that she doesn't have to make everyone love her, but she would like to be closer to Yvonne Millard. still doesn't understand what the point is just because he and Erlans are better friends. Part of it is because the girl wants everything to be normal. She has never had real friends before, and now everything is new. It is considered strange and unknown. She is not the kind of person who will just ignore it. The blonde nods. He tries to understand his sister's feelings and make sure she doesn't think she's being left out. There's no need to rush. It's better for the girl to try to get closer slowly, but surely the situation will become easier over time. It's natural that they don't want to perceive the heroine well after just one meeting. So far, Yvonne has only heard about the woman from other people's lips. It is quite logical that she could have formed certain convictions that force her to move forward. The princess will show her new friend what she really is, and then they will stop distancing themselves from her. The girl seems to understand, but clarifies whether it will really work, because it seems she needs guarantees. Then the only thing left to do is retreat. Even if this does not help, you can always retreat, no matter how good the intentions of the beauty are. You cannot impose them on others. Valerie listens attentively. There is no need to worry about what has not happened yet. It is a bad habit. The main thing is to have faith in yourself and be calm about the future. Of course, the heroine believes the words, so she promises that she will definitely try to make everything as best as possible. The king remembered about the meeting. He should have told him earlier. But in the end, he only does it now, in the morning. A boy with scarlet hair stood in front of the guys, rudely turning away. He asks not to introduce themselves. They still will not address each other by name. There will be enough surnames, and the Bells already know him, so this simplifies the situation many times. He will calmly read a book, while others will go about their business, and will not pay attention to what is happening around. This option will suit everyone. Questions are not accepted. Blue-eyed frowns, showing displeasure she had such thoughts. But his behavior finally confirms her guesses. The boy was forced to come here. Queen Rosiana lied to His Majesty in the letter, only to get this meeting at any cost. The only question is why all this is necessary. The woman had sent a letter even before that, early in the morning. She asked Maximilian to also be at the children's meetings and try to establish relationships. These connections would be good for him. At first, she did not want to explain what provoked such an impulse, but later everything was resolved, even quite successfully. The blonde raised an eyebrow in surprise when she heard, as is known, the beauty almost never leaves Morton Castle to protect her son. It is true, but it seems that the young man feels abandoned, while the others gather together. He needs to communicate more with his peers. It will be better that way. Blue-eyed involuntarily recalls that expression of disgust. The boy she met in the garden did not behave like someone who needs friends. Valerie still does not want to refuse. She timidly says that everything suits her, but it remains to be seen what kind of person Maximilian is. The lady cannot make decisions on her own. She needs to consult with the other guys, and only after that will it be clear a strange meeting took place. Friends made a decision, and Erlans was all for it. Now, sitting on the sofa opposite the silent youth, the girl quietly asks what they need to do to talk to him. The nephew decides that it is better to give him the freedom to do whatever he wants. They are not playing anyway. There is nothing special. The child drilling Belle with his eyes does not understand what he is thinking about. It seems he is simply trying to get used to it. Now he is radiating a fierce hostility inherent only to adults. Noticing the look, he asks what is wrong. The girl quickly finds an excuse. She was wondering if the guy wanted to eat, because they have a lot of delicious desserts in their castle that can be taken. The hero brushes it off. He hates sweets, but they can indulge in anything. This man is really different. Maximilian raises his hand to his face, as if he wanted to adjust his glasses, but freezes with a strange fear. The girl understands that the further the worse it is time to go home. The prince's friends have already left the estate, but the son of the former queen was stopped at the exit. Erlans insists on asking something important. He doesn't understand why the boy came. It seems he didn't want to be here, constantly showing his disgust, which gradually became more pronounced. The blonde doesn't want to swear. But no one canceled the questions. They said that the young man was lonely, so he needed to talk to his friends. The angry boy explained that he did not come here of his own free will. His mother forced him to come to make connections that would help him in the future. I wanted everyone gathered here in the castle to refuse. Where does this kindness come from? It's immediately obvious that in the Emperor's family, the guys can afford anything they want. They live as if they have everything in the world. The blonde has been silent all this time. If she is not lying, it turns out that Queen Rosiana wants Maximilian to acquire new acquaintances. For this, she is even ready to lie to the Emperor. Or something else is hidden here. It doesn't seem like the girl behaved like that in the past. I want to hope that she is just sincerely worried about her son's future, meeting him in the garden, and the rest of the series of events screams that something is going wrong. The red-headed one is not going to pretend to be a friend, but in fact, the children would like everything to be good in their relationship. He gets angry again, as if he got up on the wrong side of the bed today. Maximilian wants to leave, but before that he warns. Not a word of this conversation should reach his mother's ears. It will come back to haunt them, and even him, whatever that means. The door closed, the boys were left alone, and Erlans began to speak. First, no matter how prickly the boy was, the young man still liked him. Nothing could be done. The youth behaves more aggressively than Ivan. But even the princess doesn't feel anything, if you think about it. It was his behavior that made him realize how suspicious the former empress was. The girl didn't think of it, although she should have, but she realized that the boy had no bad intentions. He just wanted to show his defensive reaction, forcing the others to leave him alone. It seems that the blonde understood what was going on. He thinks that he and Valerie are very similar. That's why he is so interesting. He didn't think that it was true, but although not in appearance, in character, they are the same. The main character freezes in horror. She screams, asking if this is true, because these words sound more like an insult. Erlans does not suspect that he is only making things worse.